Today, we refer to it as ExxonMobil Guyana
Mm-hmm.
because you know what I'm talking about. Because ExxonMobil,
Yes.
that's right.
Yes.
Not too long, I think it happened about a few days ago, given what is taking place in the so called Middle East in West Asia. It appears like the Guyana government reached out to Exxon about the rising costs outside, and
Yes.
they spoke about Exxon increasing the profit share to give more to Guyana. And the Exxon boss in Guyana said, no way. All right? Now, people like us, we are not surprised because we understand how imperialism operates. We understand neocolonialism. And we've been pointing this out all the time. But when you listen to what Alistair Rutledge, we call him, we said, hail Rutledge, the new president of Guyana. What Rutledge is saying, you want to know if it's more than embarrassing. It's an action, it's an insult to the people of this country, an insult to whatever semblance of independence or sovereignty, whatever we still hold on to. But here is the representative of a huge corporation telling the government of Guyana that they will not go along with it. And you know what? None of the major opposition parties, I'm talking about those in parliament, the parliamentary opposition, no one will say anything about it. And before this happened, we were saying in the Organization for the Victory of the People, we were saying that given what we're seeing now after the so-called Dunroe Doctrine, and when you listen to what Rubio said, both Rubio and Trump, we said, give that context, no one in Guyana could approach ExxonMobil and speak about renegotiating the contract. They dare not. They dare not. And we put it in a nutshell, Andrew. We keep saying, you know why? Even many of the so-called Pan-African groups or African right groups, I'll tell you the truth, they're all afraid of white people. I'm telling you,
We have said that before.
They are afraid of white people. And when I say white people, let me be specific here, as Walter Rodney pointed out. I am speaking of those who built their countries on colonial genocide and the slave and captured Africans. I'm speaking about the Western countries. I'm not speaking about Russia, and Russia's the only Eastern European country. The Russians don't involve in anything. They don't tell us nothing. They don't tell us what to do or how we should run our country. The people who do that is the United States through the U.S. Embassy in Guyana or through the Secretary of State. The European Union do it here, the British High Commission, and the Canadians. So when we say the white people, we're talking about these countries. They are actually, they're scared of them. They don't even, you know why? You know why they're scared? Because they have assets abroad.
Yes,
they have
absolutely.
In those countries. Their children are at universities in those countries. They have visas. So they keep quiet. They keep quiet.
So they're not scared then because
people like us now in the
Yes. I was saying that they're not scared then. They're compliant because they have interests in whatever the West is doing.
Yeah, right? They're compliant. They're compliant. Yes. But they do not say anything. They do not say anything. And when you get the organizations like the political formations like the Organization for the Victory of the People and I coming out and saying what we say, we come over as extremists. But it's not extremists.
And revolutionaries. Yes.
It's not extremists. Yes. It's about we are the real patriots. We are the real patriots. We're the real nationalists.
Correct.
You know, these people are happy. These people, as we pointed out many times in this program, Andrew, these backward neo-colonial elites in the Caribbean, they were never committed to a dismantling of the post-plantation structures, the colonial structures. They were happy to maintain it and to tweak it here and there, but it's just, yeah. So it remains. It is there, and they're happy. They're nothing but overseers. They're overseers, and they're happy with that. They are not committed to genuine social and economic transformation. To do that, you will have to embark on radical social change. And the word radical is not synonymous with extreme. Radical comes from the Latin word radix. You know this. Root, to get to the root of the issue. And our problem is
in fact, we are not even radical, as you're saying. It's just basic human survival.
That's
basic
right.
human survival. So that's right. Not radical. Go ahead, Mr. Perreira.
That's right. Yes. You know, so you hear parties. Have you ever heard any political party in the run-up to elections or their manifesto will tell the poor people, "Oh, we don't like you"? Everyone.
Yes.
Everyone, you have to appeal to the 99%. Well, everybody likes to talk about, income, this and all that. But how are you going to do it? You can say anything.
Never stated.
That's right. So our position is you have to. Too much wealth is concentrated in the hands of a tiny minority.
Correct.
That's right.
Now, Mr. Perreira, I don't know if in Guyana, I was talking to the people on live last week, and we mentioned that in Jamaica, they are thinking of formalizing what is known as a Ministry of Defense. I didn't grow up in Jamaica hearing of a Ministry of Defense. I understand the Ministry of National Security. I understand that the Prime Minister of Jamaica, I don't know about in Guyana and Trinidad, is by just being Prime Minister, you're also Minister of Defense. Is that the same situation in Guyana? And are they thinking of also formalizing there, as Trinidad has done, and Jamaica is about to do, a Ministry of Defense? And for whose interest is that?
Yeah, well, we have a defense board, and that board meets very often with the president, who's the commander-in-chief of the army. So, but we don't actually have a Ministry of Defense. But now that you pointed out what is happening in Jamaica and Trinidad, not surprised if we change over the Ministry of Defense, because you can see where this is coming from. You know where this is coming from.
Correct. Because Trinidad also has a Ministry of... Right. Trinidad also has a Ministry of Homeland Security.
Which we have a Ministry of what it called, we have Home Affairs. Yeah.
Oh.
But
and that was created when? When was that created? Recently?
We always had that. We had that for years, for decades. We had a Ministry of Home Affairs.
I got you.
And then they changed it to the Ministry of Public Security, and then it went back. But the thing is, we have a station, a police station in Georgetown, Guyana. It's one of the major police stations. After we have the police headquarters, also in Georgetown, in an area known as Ivlery, which is not far from where their headquarters of the Guyana Defense Force, our army. But this second largest station, there was a fire, and they've rebuilt it. They put up a new structure. And this structure, if you see the size of this structure, I think I can't recall, I think it's about, maybe about 10, 12 stories.
Yes.
Concrete and glass. And right away, I mean, seasoned, I traveled and I know things. I've been in activism for my whole life.
Yes.
And the moment I saw that station, I said, no, this is not any ordinary police station. Okay? So I had my own, I developed my own impression of it, and I have my own position in it. And it's interesting that there are people who are sharing it with me. because I believe
Mm-hmm.
that that station is going to house, operating out of there will be foreign police entities
Mm-hmm.
as well as intelligence services. So we're in for a rough ride.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't
Well,
believe
they're
I don't
also
believe that this huge I don't believe that this huge structure is just for the Guyana police force. I do not believe it.
Mhm. Yes, yes, yes. Well, we're seeing structures being set up this morning. The Trinidad Garden was also reporting that they are now going to vet all of us traveling into and from our countries. So once you get at the airport, they know where you're going, why you're going, perhaps where you're going to stay, and everything about you, because they have to ensure that the bad guys are kept out of our countries, right? And that to people seem normal, but is that normal to you, Mr. Perro, that they will be vetting our every move, and at the airport we will
Well,
have to
maybe
declare
what they're doing
defense?
now is intensifying it. They're
Yes.
expanding it, but they've been doing that a long
Mhm.
time. The minute I purchase a
Correct.
ticket, I book a ticket, they have me on the radar.
Right.
You know,
Right.
one time
You're right.
I was traveling. Yeah, I was traveling to Jamaica to
Hmm.
speak at the anniversary of the Million Man March. I was invited by Minister Farrakhan. They purchased a ticket for me
Hmm.
and everything. And I
Yes.
took the flight from here. When I arrived in Antigua, I got
Hmm.
to Antigua, and I was supposed to take the flight from Antigua to Kingston, Jamaica. The
Yeah.
Peewee representatives came right on straight to where I was sitting, identified me, asked them to come with them, and said that Jamaica say I cannot enter the country, and I was thrown back.
Wow.
So they know,
Wow.
you know.
Without any reason, without any,
I traveled through
without any.
Germany. Yeah, yeah, and Germany, I coming off
Yes.
the aircraft, going through the you come from the aircraft and you walk through the thing to get, and right at the door, I see these three guys and you standing right there. I knew. They said, "Come with me." Take my passport, sit and thing, and held it till I ready to leave. So I've been through.
Hmm.
I went through this a year. So this is nothing new. They're just expanding it
Yes.
to include every
Yes.
year. Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
including
Now,
people who stood up for Palestine, who stood up for Haiti, and everything. Because what we're
that's the point.
witnessing, brother, especially what happened in Gaza. Gaza has become a symbol of global resistance to fascism, to imperialism and fascism. So the idea is not just to stamp out the resistance, the axis of resistance in the resistance you were seeing in Iran, the resistance in Lebanon, the resistance in Palestine and Gaza. No, it's more than that. This is to stamp out resistance to the empire all over the world.
Correct. Correct.
All over the
Correct.
world. All over the
Hmm.
world. You can be a left
Hmm.
wing or a nationalist political entity that is trying to protect your sovereignty, independence, and refute, you will be targeted.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
And because you are well known, right? Most people like myself are not well known. Then they were able to target you guys because you're
Yeah.
internationally well known. But for those of us who are not so well known, that is where they're coming after us too. So they are going to
Yeah.
be vetting our social media,
Yeah.
everything that we say on YouTube or anywhere, to
Yeah.
ensure that maybe I say something on YouTube that they don't like, and I can't go into whatever country
Yeah.
they don't want me to come into, right?
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
where it is going to be now. The common citizen, the common man, the unknowns are now going to
Yes.
be targeted by the state. And this is what we want to make sure. Mr. Pereira and lots of activists are known globally, but those of us who are not so much known are now going to be targeted. So like Mr.
And
Pereira, we're
brother,
going to be going to,
and brother,
yes, Mr. Pereira.
the target members of your family who's not even
Yes.
activists. You remember
Yes.
the very famous statement by Pastor Niemöller from Germany when they came for
Hmm.
the Jews. I said nothing, and on, and the treaty
Right.
coming in.
Hmm.
Yes,
Hmm. Hmm. Until they came
that's
for the
right.
end,
You
there was
see, you
nobody
don't
to
have to be, uh, you know. And what we are
an
seeing is that,
activist.
yes, what we are seeing is that all this nonsense about freedom of speech and the right to assemble and all of that. It's all that gone through the door.
Hmm.
Those of
Hmm.
us,
Hmm.
those of us who for decades have studied Western political philosophy theory,
Mm-hmm.
we knew when we studied that what is called liberal democracy, we knew it was a con. The Canadian Prime Minister actually got up and said this whole international rules based order is not true. It does. He actually said that. But as he said, they went along with it because it was in their interest to do so. But now that it is backfired or boomerang there, now they're coming out. And notice that the meeting they
Isn't
had, that
isn't
invite,
he
he didn't
isn't he a
invite Canada.
personal friend of? Yeah, isn't he a personal friend of Trump? The same. What's his name? What's his name? The Prime Minister of
Carney,
Canada. I think he's a personal.
Carney. No,
Yeah,
no, I
he's a
don't. I'm
personal
not
friend.
sure. Is he? Well, I don't think they're
Yeah.
because I
Well,
mean,
you know, the thing about it, they play a lot of these games with us, and they
that's
pretend as
right.
if sometimes they're against systems, and behind the
Yeah,
scenes they are supporting the system
that's
because
right.
and you know he's an Oxford graduate and a very elite
Mhm.
guy,
Yeah,
the current
yeah,
prime minister of Ghana. So I don't trust him either.
yeah.
And if we notice, many of them that they are sending to power now are these guys who have great rhetoric and they seem to be trying to defend our interests, but at the same time they're not because they're tied up too with that system. Obama, I look at
Yeah.
him like an Obama. You know,
Yeah.
go ahead, Mr. Perot.
No, I agree with you. I don't look to these guys, such people, for any form of legitimacy or to pay
Mhm.
attention much because
Yeah,
you know the rule of
yeah,
Canada. I mean, you might say it's
correct.
different prime minister. So look at what Canada was part of the Canadian Armed Forces participated in the removal of Jean Bertrand Aristide.
Correct.
They
And and
did.
and right.
That's right. There's an
Hmm.
interesting
Hmm.
book. There's an interesting book written by a Canadian activist on Canada's foreign policy and how they get involved in operations with the U.S. to bring about regime
Hmm.
change and all of that. Because people got this idea that
Hmm.
Canada is this, not like the U.S., not imperial. But when you get into
Please.
that, you really see, yep, no, no, no. So a lot is coming out about that, and so. But the thing about it is, I think people need to understand that, yeah, somebody's saying, yeah, absolutely, it's a con, democracy is dead. Many, yeah,
It is. Yeah, Afro, yeah,
yeah,
Grenadian. And shout out to him. He does a good job
yeah,
from Grenada on his show
yeah,
also. Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. A lot of our people, I think, you know, people, a lot of people who, I don't want to use that term, but let's say you're going to say people who describe themselves as apolitical. They
Hmm.
looked at what happened to the way action was taken by the UN to impose a no-fly zone in Iraq, the whole lie about weapons of mass destruction. Scott Ritter was there. He said they never had weapons of mass destruction. He saw what happened to it. He took a different line. Look where he is today. You know,
In
the whole
Russia,
thing
right?
about
Hmm.
yes,
Hmm.
what they did with Libya and all. This playbook, lies, 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 lies all the time. And I think people are saying, they're saying, hey, how can you impose a quick no-fly zone within the 2 days on Iraq, Libya, and all of that, and more than 2 years of genocide, and you cannot stop Israel? Israel can do as it like.
Yeah.
You saw the targeting
Yeah.
of. This is the first time in any war in history of warfare that so many journalists have been killed. And you
Hmm.
saw what happened to the RT TV crew, I think 2 days ago. They were
Hmm.
deliberately targeted. There was no military facility there. The Israelis actually wanted to kill those two RT journalists because of what they reported,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
because
Hmm.
Israel is
No,
indulging heavy censorship.
yes. Yes, they are. And not only Israel, but the United States too, because
That's
right now
right.
Trump is saying that whatever you ask me, I'm not going to disclose to you. He's saying
That's
that you
right.
think he now has the audacity to be telling Americans that I don't have to
Yes.
disclose what I'm doing to you, who I'm going to bomb, what time I'm going to bomb them. I don't have to disclose that to you. So they're
Yeah.
both. censoring
Yeah.
left, right, and center. But
Yeah.
is it that the UN doesn't want to do it? Well, do you think they don't want to do anything, or they're just pretending that they are for peace when they're really not for peace? For peace.
You know, Andrew. For years, for decades, we had leaders from the global south going up on that UN podium and launching attacks on the UN, the structure, the existing structure,
Mm-hmm.
calling for
Yeah.
reform and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, those calls fell on deaf ears. I mean,
Yes.
the UN, is the UN look at the UN, how the UN operate. And then you look at before it, this predecessor, the League of
League
Nations,
of
and
Nations.
how they
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
operated, yes, in relation to Italy's invasion of Ethiopia.
Mm-hmm.
Good. You would have believed that, okay, since the founding of the UN, the UN needs revamping. Gaddafi,
Right.
Abe, many leaders went up there and they're ignored. How can the entire humanity, 100 and something countries voting for
Mm-hmm.
the illegal, the criminal embargo
Against
to be
Haiti. Yeah. Not
lifted
Cuba. Mm-hmm.
every year we go and vote, and only two countries keep consistently voting. Even
Mm-hmm.
US allies, little Marshall Islands, and them just twist and change their position. Israel,
Mm-hmm.
Israel and US and Israel. And Israel has it in for Cuba. You know why? Because people need to examine, research carefully the link between the Zionist colony Israel, or the apartheid state of Israel, and the then apartheid state of South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
You see, they sent nuclear components to the South African, the white South African government to build nuclear weapons. And they thought that they would have had the opportunity to use it against the freedom fighters as well as against the Cuban forces. And they never did. So, and Cuba's always taken this position against Zionism and what the Israelis do. So, you can expect them consistently voting, with the United States voting to keep the embargo on Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, the embargo
Now,
on Cuba.
yes, yes. What has Cuba done, Mr. Pereira? Maybe you've been to Cuba more often than I have. I just been there once. But when I went there, I noticed that you didn't have a lot of black people. Who look like me, who are in Congress the Cuban Congress, and that people who look like me also are not allowed to be so much in the tourist area, at least after dark hours. They're just not permitted. The police are going to get them out. How is Cuba not almost a segregated country too? I mean, has the revolution lived up to its principles, to its core values? What would you say?
Well, I've been to Cuba. I think I went to Cuba 6 times, and the
Right. So
last time
right.
I went there, a conference held by the Casa de las Americas. I know nothing of that what you're speaking about, because
Okay.
first of all, this is what we need to understand. I think if we're
Mm-hmm.
going to look at Cuba, we can't look in Cuba in isolation. We must look at the
Right.
compare and contrast. Look at Cuba with other countries in the Americas. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Cuba with Brazil, Cuba with Venezuela, Cuba with Argentina, or any of
Mm-hmm.
the countries where you have American allies, puppets, right-wing
Mm-hmm.
regimes.
Fair.
Okay,
Fair.
I'll
Mm-hmm.
get back to Cuba. I'll get back to Cuba. Right? Okay, let me deal first with Cuba before I talk with others.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the Cuban Communist Party, the Western media, they don't give you coverage of certain things, and they're very good at that. The
Mm-hmm.
Cuban Communist Party has 3 vice presidents. One is an African Cuban, And there are two women who
Okay.
are vice presidents. And there are two women who are
Mm-hmm.
vice presidents.
Mm-hmm.
Right? As
Mm-hmm.
Fidel, as Raul Castro said, these are people, they're not tokens, they earn their stripes. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the Cuban embassies, the Cuban embassy, the last ambassador, just the first ambassador that Cuba appointed to Guyana when we established
Yeah.
relations, was an African Cuban. The
Mm-hmm.
present Cuban ambassador to Trinidad and deputy, the ambassador is African, the number two is African, I think. Uh, the Cuban and the deputy is a woman. The ambassador to Barbados is an African. Janet Cardenas Stables, she's African. Uh, the Cuban ambassador to London is a woman, African.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
can go on and on.
Mm-hmm. Are they mulattoes, or would you say that they're like my shade of African?
Well, I don't know. I don't use the term mulatto.
Mulatto, or yeah,
We
but
have
you
those,
know,
yeah.
in that in the
I know,
in the
no,
in the
no.
Latin American
Yeah,
experience,
several of
in
them
the
are.
Latin American,
The first one I mentioned too.
yeah.
Guyana was, yes, uh, what you call, yes, if you want to use a word, uh, looking
A
like
mulatto.
dark African, mulatto. Yeah,
Oh,
I don't
okay,
use the word
right, I
mulatto
see.
because I understand the
Mhm.
psychology of the plantation. You know.
Yeah, but the reality still exists. I mean, I think the
Yeah,
plantation really
but
has not really
that's right.
been
That's right. That's right.
done.
That's yeah. But that is not. But the ones I'm telling you about, both the vice presidents, they're very dark skinned Africans.
Okay.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you have to realize, you have to understand that class, not just class, but race is also very powerful dynamic in the so-called Latin American
Mm-hmm.
society.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
When I first went to the Venezuela in '82 for a conference, I,
Mm-hmm.
I Africans were invisible at the airport. I saw no Africans on arriving at the airport.
Mm-hmm.
That's long before
Mm-hmm.
Chavez.
Mm-hmm.
And when I
Mm-hmm.
went back to Venezuela, transiting and going through Venezuela, as you
Mm-hmm.
hit the airport,
Mm-hmm.
you can see the entire immigration staff,
Mm-hmm.
Africans. You go to the Cambio, everything, the bookstore, you see it, right?
Right.
Venezuela appointed,
Right.
Venezuela sent two African women as ambassador, doctor, African women as ambassadors to Guyana. Now compare
Mm-hmm.
with Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at Brazil. Brazil has the largest concentration of Africans after Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
And for all the years we had diplomatic relations with Brazil, Brazil never appointed. I've never seen a black Afro Brazilian as ambassador.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
You
Because
see?
Brazil is South Africa this is a South Africa in Latin America,
Yeah,
Brazil. I've been there twice, and
yeah,
you understand that is. And even if
yeah,
you go to the predominantly Afro Brazilian state, Bahia,
yes,
Salvador,
yeah,
it's the same thing that you see. I went on to okay, the first time I went there, Mr. Pereira, I
yeah.
saw these, dark skinned people just look like me on the streets, a lot of them, and they're
Mhm.
moving about their carts, just like you see in Jamaica. And then I went, I said, okay, can I go to the university to see what happens there? And Universidade, that's the University of Bahia. When I
Mhm.
went there, I thought I was in North America, white,
Yeah,
very white in terms of, and so it does not represent the populace that I saw on the streets. So we know that Brazil can't even be compared to any, yeah, they talk a lot, but they're just not the standard of equality in Latin America and the Caribbean region. It's sad. When I went there, I thought I was taken back into the days of slavery, if you know what I mean.
right.
I mean, not that Brazil
Yeah, well, that's
is
what we're
not
talking about.
sophisticated.
But you don't see that. You don't see that as Caribbean Caribbean historians and political analysts who study look at Caribbean said that the only country that has dismantled the plantation structure is Cuba. Yeah. So
Mm,
in those areas where you go, where are certain tourists, and so it had nothing to do with color, because I've been to places. I went to Cuba till 3 hours in the morning and all that places. with
Mm-hmm.
friends, with people,
Without
and
being
so
attacked. Mm-hmm.
all that. And we've
Mm-hmm.
never seen that. We saw Afro-Cubans, everybody all around the place. I know,
Mm-hmm.
what the police do. You know, but you don't see police. You don't see the police because I
But they're
remember.
there.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you know who the police don't really. Let me tell you, the security. Every neighborhood has a committee for the defense of the revolution, a CDR,
Mm-hmm.
right? Guardians of the
Mm-hmm.
revolution, right? They're the eyes and ears of the revolution, based in the communities, made up of the people, the
Mm-hmm.
ordinary the
You're
people.
right. Mm-hmm.
But if you walk the road, I remember you're 3 o'clock going back to the hotel because after gathering, and
Mm-hmm.
I am stopping at the hotel I'm staying at, and two sisters are going on to a hotel 3 corners away from me. And I said to them, I said,
Mm-hmm.
well, you're in Cuba, you don't need me to escort you. They said, certainly not. We know we're safe. You see? So there is nobody out there to rob you, put a gun to you. And if you do see the police, is that maybe at some point near some ministry or some, you know what I mean? A place that need,
Mm-hmm.
uh, then you will see the police, right? But
Yes.
I at that time in the morning, I mean, in Guyana, I went to a meeting and we were going home and I saw all these police cars and police on the road. I wanted to know what, and that was the Saturday night. The police are out there because this particular nightclub, there's a lot of people go to it, and they're people with money and maybe they carry on and all of that. So the police are out there. You don't see that type of thing there. And in Cuba, you're free to go. People, tourists go all over, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's why
Um,
Kwame Ture, Stokely, formerly Stokely Carmichael. Kwame Ture
mm-hmm.
used to go to Cuba for his medical treatment when they found him with cancer. And he referred to Fidel Castro. He said Fidel Castro is the blackest man in the Americas and the Caribbean. He wasn't talking about in black in terms of your color, but
Yeah, I
ontologically.
understand. I
Right.
understand. Yeah, in terms of
That's
his
right. Because
mentality,
yeah,
his
yeah.
mindset.
Because
Mm-hmm.
when you can send, my brother, when you can take the weapons that are necessary for you to defend your own country and send it hundreds of thousands of miles away to Angola, and you said that the reason for going to fight in Angola is because African blood flow freely through the veins of every Cuban. Uh, and they named the Operation Carlota after an African woman who led an insurrection against the Spaniards. My point is this is, and you listen to President Petro when he lashed out at Trump. He said, we have in Latin America, South America, we have the blood of the Moors in us, Moorish blood. And it's not, when you look at Spain standing up and saying today, the Prime Minister of Spain said that Spain will not be used as a base to attack any country, and Trump is going after him. People need to understand and a lot of people in Spanish, the background are discovering this, going back into it. The Spanish people and the Portuguese, a lot of the Portuguese and Southern Italians, they have Moorish and African blood in them.
Yeah, we understand that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's in the
Mm-hmm.
culture, but there's a whole thing now where a lot of those people are actually joining and openly, I know it, as part of the global, involved in Pan-African activities.
One of the things, Mr. Pereira, that I find very, very much hypocritical with our race and
Yeah.
with what I see happening, and the same thing happens in North America, is the fact that, yes, we can have these wonderful conversations about what is happening, but it doesn't mean anything to Black people like in Chicago who are oppressed every day and they have to deal with the oppression. We talk until thy kingdom come. But the fact is, while the Black elites, they remain in their what do you call them now, their ivory tower, talking all this knowledge of the Moors and the influence on the Spanish and the Portuguese and the Southern Italians. But what are we doing to ensure? Because let us be practical now. Which Black Caribbean citizen would be happy to live in the position Cubans are living in right now, economically. Well, not necessarily even during the 1990s and before the even dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1989. Which of us would be happy living under those circumstances, the inability to move as we want to move? Because that was one of the reasons why slavery was also terrible. We weren't able to go wherever we want to go. We want to be free to go to London, do you think the typical Caribbean Black person would be happy to live under those situations that Cubans found themselves and still continue to find themselves under or in?
Well, before you get there to Cuba, I not too long ago, before I joined your show, I was
Mm-hmm.
listening to an African student, an African who studied in Australia, resides in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
and he's moving
Mm-hmm.
back to Malawi. And his program was
Right.
about why Africans are leaving Australia. You know, brother, you mentioned
Mm.
Brazil. Let me tell you something.
Yes.
One of the most racist countries on the face of this earth. You mentioned Brazil,
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
Australia.
It's Australia. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Australia
I heard about
is
that.
one of the
Mm-hmm.
most racist
Mm-hmm.
countries on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
Good. And
Mm-hmm.
Africans go there and look how they're treated. Arabs go there, Moroccans, and the same way they're treated. Right? Australia had for years a white Australia policy until the Labour Party they change it, but then they get back. Good. A white
Mm-hmm.
policy. The way the indigenous people of Australia are treated. Most of them have terrible health issues. They live in the way where they reside, everything, and that's why you see there's a lot of you don't get a lot about their activism and what they're doing. But Australia is very racist.
It
Now,
is. Mm-hmm.
brother, I don't think any human being likes suffering for the sake of suffering. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure if we do. I
Mm-hmm.
I am not. I believe I take that slogan, right? Patria Merita, or freedom or death, that the Black Panther Party
Mm-hmm.
used. I take it seriously. Sekou used it. Sekou spoke about it. He said we'd rather live poor and in dignity than to live with so-called riches and in slavery. You know, Claude McKay, the great
Mm-hmm.
black writer from the
If
Renaissance,
we must die. Mm-hmm.
Harlem Renaissance, said the same thing. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
If we
so
must die. Yeah.
yeah, what I'm saying is, I have a different conception of what constitutes what is freedom.
Mm-hmm.
But the
Mm-hmm.
Cuban people, Cuba was never given a breathing space. From the time of that
Mm-hmm.
revolution in '59, Cuba was never given a breathing
Yes.
space. Had
Mm-hmm.
Cuba, if there was not that blockade, had Cuba been allowed to blossom and flourish and not be arrested, Cuba's development was not more than arrested, it was blocked, you know.
Yes.
Cuba would have
Mm-hmm.
achieved, look at all these years of sanction, what Cuba have achieved.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The area of
Mm-hmm.
medicine and all of that, health care, education, and all of that. But the point I keep making is this, and this is the question that we pose to the defenders of these bogus democracies, Western democracies, and defenders of the capitalist system. If your system is superior, if it is better, why not, as the Soviets claimed during the Brezhnev period, when the Russians
Mm-hmm.
were, Soviet Union was talking about peaceful coexistence? Their argument was, let the two social systems coexist. We don't
Mm-hmm.
need war, because to build an alternative to capitalism, you must have peace. It can only be built in an environment of peace, because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you form human dignity and you put people first. So the
Mm-hmm.
money that you need, you got 10 billion, 10 million US dollars, 200 million US dollars to spend. You want to put it into healthcare, into education, into agriculture, into housing. And you know what? The big bad wolf is breathing down on your neck. So you have to
The problem
divert
is
money. Yeah, you have to take money
the
that can go into those areas I just mentioned and buy weapons
the,
and spend on
right.
defense because
Yes. The
they
problem.
do not give you a breath. The
Yes.
Nicaragua under the Sandinistas, were they ever given a breathing space? They were destabilized from day
Right.
one. So
Right. Right.
my point is, you cannot ignore the blockade, the acts of destabilization, attempted assassinations.
Hmm.
This has been going on for a long time. And when the Soviet
It has been.
Union, when the Soviet Union collapsed, disintegrated, and then the Eastern Bloc countries collapsed, people thought that Cuba was going. And Cuba,
Hmm.
alive and well. Castro said
Hmm.
something. When he went, he had a meeting with Mikhail Gorbachev, and he came back to Cuba and he addressed a huge rally. And it started raining. Castro said, well, oh, we stand in the rain, we join. And he said, those reforms that they're carrying out, he said, we have nothing against reforms. He said, but what they're doing, if to do that, he says, if we have to be the last defenders of socialism, the banners of it, we will do so. And they survive.
But
And now,
yes,
and
but at
now,
what cost? Yes, at
well,
what cost? When you see at what cost have they survived? And the
well,
people there, when you see the level of destitution, not necessarily, yes, they can get their health care and they can get their go to school
no,
and
we
etc.
agree. We
etc. But
agree. It's too much. It's people. Listen, Andrew. If you take, you can take. Look, you can take 20 of us who be
mhm,
who, and you can put some people through a thing. After 5 minutes, some people collapse.
right,
If you torture them, some people collapse. Some will
hmm,
hold up for a day. Some will go for years. Some
resilient,
will
yeah,
rather die
hmm,
because
hmm,
I don't know what's human nature. What's human nature? What's human nature? Human nature is not a given. We all act differently under different circumstances and behave differently. Our choices are different. We're not up.
But what I think that one of the things that
Discriminate.
all humans love, though, is irrespective of where they come from and culture, is freedom, the
Of course.
ability to move, right,
Of
and to do
course.
whatever they see that they want to do. They might not be living a prosperous lives, but one of the
No.
things that people like to do, they know they like to move from one part of Trinidad to Tobago to the next because it gives them some sort of autonomy. They
But
feel,
but
even if
but
they're not wealthy, just the ability to
but
move makes them feel.
people move, go freely, they go anywhere they want. I I
Yeah, but
I no,
from
here.
one country to
I
the
just
next,
want to make
can they
I
move
just want to
outside
say
of the
this.
country?
I
Hmm.
want to say this. Let me just make some things clear. First of all, from an ideological perspective, I am
Hmm.
not a communist nor a Marxist.
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
socialist. I make that clear.
yeah.
I do accept Karl Marx's contribution. I do accept uh, the achievements of communist countries and those countries and all that. But there were people of like us who were critical of what was called existing socialism in the then Eastern Bloc countries, right? There'd be different types of socialism. The socialism in Iraq and different countries were different. Nyerere, Ujam, and all of that. They're various, just like how you got different Christian denominations and all of that. Good, we got this. So what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, I believe in defense. I believe the people of Cuba have a right to decide what is best for them. And I am saying that at the end of the day, we tend to ignore or play down human agency. The Cuban Revolution could not have survived all these years of sanction and blockade had it not been for the high level of consciousness. Good. And I will tell you this. I will tell you this. Of course, there are people, the suffering is enormous. No one wants to be in the blackout for 6 days and all of that. But there are those who would use that to call for so-called for greater freedoms. And there are others who will hold their ground. Now, I don't treat freedom as an abstraction. I believe freedom is concrete and real, and freedom is not a license to do what anybody wants to do, good, or you wish to do. I believe in freedom. I believe that people, when I speak of freedom, I link it with rights, concrete rights. Good. I don't want to hear about I having the right to free speech if I'm hungry.
Yes.
Right? I
Right.
don't want to hear
Right.
about the right to free
Right.
speech and I'm hungry. I don't want to hear about the
Right.
right to assemble. I can have the right to assemble, but when you start to get when you assemble consistently and on a programmatic platform, then you'll see how the state will react to your right to assemble. We see it. We saw it during the when you have in
And
the United States. We've seen it up to today
correct.
when they have the Wall Street
Correct.
protests. So
Correct.
freedom is not an absolute. It's not an absolute.
Right. And
Good.
the same thing I could say also, that I don't care about,
Yeah.
equality of whatever of everybody
Yes.
when I'm hungry, right? And I
That's
don't
right.
care
Correct.
about nationalism if I'm hungry. So
Hungry.
it boils into the same thing. And I want to also say that I am of the impression, and I'm sure that's the reality too, that no country is 100% socialist or 100% capitalist. I want to know if people like Fidel Castro and the Cuban elites who run that sort of economic model, if they are suffering too, can they move around? Do they have special places that they go to buy things? The other day, somebody went to Cuba and he was showing us the different parts of Cuba, the 5% who live well and the majority who don't live well. So you have
And you're
these elites,
talking.
just like we have in capitalism, right? Where they tell us, like the Andrew Holnesses and the Dr. Irfan Ali, oh, the economy is doing great. But who is doing well? The majority of people are not doing well, but they're doing well, and the elites are doing well. And this is the same reality that we live to. And I think that whether you're communist or you're capitalist, I think ordinary people like ourselves need to come together and say, but guess what? The politician doesn't live as we live. They're asking us to make sacrifices, but they're not making the sacrifices. Look at Andrew Holness the other day from Jamaica, said he wasn't going to accept a huge pay hike before the elections. After the elections, oh yes, I deserve it. I should be getting the pay raise. But the Jamaican people will have to suffer the sacrifices of the IMF and all of that thing. So it's time for us now to move away from ideologies and to say, look at how we are living in comparison to how these elites, the economic and the political elites, are living. And I don't think Fidel Castro and his
I
family. In fact, before you go, do you hear that the Trump is now saying that the only person he wants to leave Cuba is Miguel, the current president, Miguel Canel, Diaz Canel. He doesn't want the Castro family to move. The same thing he did to Venezuela. He didn't want Maduro's regime to go out. He just wanted Maduro and his wife out of the country. What do you
Well,
make of
elites and all of that, before we get back to
yes,
elites and all of that, first of
yes,
all, let me say this: Trump is psychotic. Trump is a lunatic who should be impeached and who should be in prison, who should be sent to jail. Now, Trump thinks he's clever by trying to treat what is happening in Cuba, to personalize it by just identifying one person, right? That's like a bait. You get rid of this man and everything will be okay, right? Is the president of Cuba the problem? The president of Cuba is not the problem. That's not the problem. The
correct.
problem
That's
that
what we
Cuba
think.
faces is it the problem in this point that we need to understand who is the enemy. The enemy is what Cuba is facing. Cuba is just one country. The enemy that Cuba is confronting is the same enemy that Iran is confronting, that Gaza is confronting, that the people all over this planet is confronting, and who are so irrational and mad. Because the president of Cuba is not the problem. The problem is the lunatics like Netanyahu and Trump who look like they can press a nuclear bomb and wipe out all of humanity. That's the people that we have to
Mm-hmm.
bother. Instead of Trump
Mm-hmm.
saying who must go, we need to tell the American people, move Trump. That's the first thing.
Yes.
That's
But
the first thing. Now,
but they're always
it,
creating
it,
an enemy.
you said,
So that is the whole
no,
point.
you said something
That they're
about
all it's
ideology.
always an enemy.
We
Yes.
all have an ideology. We all have an ideology. Ideology, there will never be. Daniel Bell once wrote about the end ideology. Absolute rubbish. Tony Blair talk about no ideology. It's nothing new, you know. We all have. No one, you whether you accept it or not. Once you start to interpret the world and offer your position, your views, whether you borrow it from here or what, you have an idea, body of ideas. Even if
Yes.
those
But are they
ideas
working?
are racist,
Yes.
backward, or what. Good.
Yes. Are
No
they
human
working?
being, yeah. It has to work.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
human being is
Yes.
ideologically neutral. The
Agreed.
education
Agreed. But
system, yeah. No, I'll get
correct.
it. Our very education system is heavy,
Mm-hmm.
is ideologically loaded, culturally biased. The entire
Yes.
Western education. Kenneth Kunda once
It
said,
is.
no education system is non-ideological. So
It's
my position
unbiased, right?
is, yes, my position is the Western world ideology, they have an ideology of white supremacy. But you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing it. The use of the word elite, we have to be careful with how we use it. There will always be elites. We have spiritual elites. The
Mm-hmm.
prophets, those who they were the spiritual elite. Elite is not a bad term or word. The point is that the elite, when Lenin used the term, the concept, developed this concept of the vanguard party. He was saying that the vanguard must never become a substitute. CLR James said that too, for the self-conscious activity of the masses, of the working people. Lenin never said all power to the Communist Party. He said all power to the Soviets. Those were the workers' councils. Good. You will have elites. People like us constitute an elite in terms of where we. If you try to locate us, where we are on the social, economic, where we work, right? In terms of as whether
But
we're
we don't call the
academic.
shots. But we don't
Good.
call the shots. We
We
don't call
don't.
the shots.
But
So
here
I
it
don't
is.
think
Here
I
it
don't
is.
think I'm in.
The function of the elite is not to impose anything such on the people, but to guide the people. So when I said to guide is this, the role of revolutionaries, Jalil al-Muntakin wrote a very good book when he said we are our own liberators. And this is what we tell people in Guyana. We said we cannot fight for you. You have to fight for yourself. But individually, we can win nothing. We have to come together collectively, and we do so in organization, because organization is the amplified is. Good?
Fair.
But I tell people I can't fight for you. And I always tell them when a politician says to you they're fighting for you, look them in the face and tell them that they're liars. Good? So I seen in Cuba, you have what is called the organs of popular power. Okay?
Yes.
Where people at the grassroots level elect across Cuba who will be in charge of different things, the municipalities, different positions, and all of that. Good. And you have to come from the ranks right up. Good. Now, you had that power fail, you had that blackout in Cuba. Good. I'm in touch with people there. I don't want to, some diplomats and so who work there. And all the members of the Cuban Communist Party, the people who had maybe little lights and so who had generator, maybe the foreign embassies. But all the Communist Party officials and all of that were in the blackout. The people who may have,
good.
the people who had lights had to be the security people, the military people. And that's important. So I can tell you what is happening. I don't want to identify certain things because it's not here for them.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I'm just asking. Not only this
There was
reference
a
to
video
what is
made with
happening
some
now.
guy. there was a video that made the rounds, and some guy from Canada who went there. You're talking about that video?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
You know,
But not only about that, but not only about that video.
there's no special
Reading
stores.
history,
Those
yeah,
stores are not.
reading history, you
Yeah.
always find that all of these so-called revolutionary, political, stories, narratives, always come from these elite class. These people with who are moneyed and they think that they have a responsibility to defend the working class. And many times when we see that, they're not living our experience. They don't even understand our experience for the most part. Manley was one of them. He was, even though he defended the cause as best as he could, but he could not connect in terms of the lived experiences of the people. He could use the rhetoric, and he did to his advantage. But the fact of the matter is that many of them do not go through, have not lived through the sort of experiences. And do you think that the Castro family live like the ordinary Cuban? Do you think they eat like the ordinary Cuban? Do you think that they travel? Don't you think they have special privileges that and sacrifices that they don't have to make that the ordinary Cuban has to?
First of all, Andrew, I do not use the word elite interchangeably with class. They're not. They're
Okay.
not the same. They're not the same.
Okay.
You can
Political
be
class. So let us use political class. Let us use political class. Let's not use elite. Let's use
well.
the
Well,
political and economic class of Cuba.
well. Class is basically a social and economic formation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Class is basically a social and economic formation, and classes. You define class based on your relation to the means of production. Good.
Yes.
What I mean is, you have those who own the primary means of production, those who own the land, capital, the factories, the corporations to produce
Mm-hmm.
wealth, and
Mm-hmm.
then you have those who sell the labor, who
Yes.
the only thing they possess is to sell the labor. So basically, we have in modern society, if we're going to indulge in this form of categorization or social stratification, we have the capitalist class, we have the working class, and
Yes.
or you might talk about the capitalist class, the working class, and then we have the middle class. Good. The middle class doesn't really own the means of production. The middle class is who might drop the managers and all of that. Good. Who can do
Mm-hmm.
the so-called intellectual, the mental work, and so. But because of that, we act as a buffer. We're between that those two classes. And
Working class and the
of
upper
course, in
echelon.
that
Mm-hmm.
middle, yes, many in that middle class can either be people who come from the middle class themselves, or people from the working class who are able to occupy the middle class sometime down the line because of their social status through education, upward mobility, and so on. You get that? Good,
Mm-hmm.
right? Somebody come from the working class poor, they become trained in economics, they rise to become a big economic advisor, and you get that. You're no longer. Then we have
Yes.
we have what Marx referred to as the lumpen class, the lumpen proletariat, the
Mm-hmm.
class
Yeah,
element.
proletariat. Mm-hmm.
Yes, the thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
but basically, you have a capitalist class, and you can have a capitalist class, and that within that capitalist class, you have the political elites. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
the United States, you have the capitalist class that rules America. The capitalist class rules America. And that class is not voted out at any election. No elections in America remove that class. That's non negotiable. But that class produces two sets of political elites. Two sets it produces, right? The Democrats and the Republicans, right? The Democrats and the Republicans are the political elites. They're the
Mm-hmm.
political elites of 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 a class that has given expression to two political parties, Democrats and Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Very well said.
Good. In Britain, we had the same thing with the Conservative Party, the
Mm-hmm.
Liberal Party, and we
And the
had the Labour
liberal,
Party.
mhm,
The
and the
Labour
Labour Party.
Party, the Labour Party in Britain implemented a lot of social democratic policies under the Clement Attlee government and all that. The political elites manage it. You can change. You can change members. The political members of the political elite can come and go and be changed, right? Or they can change sides. Good. But that class, if you want to call it class, that's that class that controls power, that socio-economic group called capitalists. Now, that class does not exist. That class does not exist in Cuba. There's no capitalist class in Cuba. And that's why Trump and them are saying, oh, we got to get rid of the communists. Well, I thought that after the collapse of the Eastern Bloc, I thought the communists had gone already. But we're still in 2026.
Remember, Trump calls the Democratic Party a communist party too.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
Trump calls the Democrats in America communists.
Look, Andrew, I'll tell you something. You know who was one of the biggest communists to walk the face of this earth? Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was the biggest communist. I can say that without fear of fear for anybody. So I don't know what people talk. Of course, you can say that's communism with a small c, because when you go to the act, I can show you ethical, religious, and theoretical justification for communism in the Gospels. You can go find it.
Yeah. Well, we're just looking at.
I do not believe. I'm not here.
Mhm.
I think I don't know anything but how the Castro family. Castro family don't run Cuba. The Castro family don't run Cuba. You know,
when they
I met years ago. A group of us traveled to Cuba, and at that time it was Libya, and they were giving the Gaddafi Prize posthumously to Che Guevara, and it was given to his daughter, who's a medical doctor, and she is the daughter of a great man, a great revolutionary, and she lives a very simple life. She hasn't she has no special thing where she. So I'm very careful of a lot of propaganda. So, and of course, they have people who will say things to have their day and all of that. You have that. You have that. You have that.
And one of the things that is not also coming out of Cuba, just like to some extent our countries, is transparency, because you cannot speak openly against the revolution. Can you? I remember I was there, and this gentleman, Cuban, was telling us about some of the things, of Cuba, and he had to be looking around him because he wanted to hear if somebody was listening to him, because anything he said that was critical of the revolution, he could have been held in, he could be in problem with the regime. And this is what I don't like about it, because I think even in our systems, at least you and I can come here, we can talk about what Dr. Irfan Ali is doing, about what Dr. Andrew Holness is doing. They may not like it, but that is what we have in our system of Western democracies, as much as it is flawed. Right?
I don't agree with you. Well, why did he stop me? Jamaica's a member of CARICOM. I am meant to be under the CARICOM, the Treaty of Chaguaramus, the free movement of citizens. Why?
But you can sue him. You could sue Jamaica.
Jamaica's the Jamaican government and the Jamaican government, all of them, and this happened under the PNC. They're all a bunch of hypocrites.
Yes.
Look at Myrie case.
Are.
Look at that Jamaican citizen who went and accused the Bajan authorities, and she was given justice.
Yes.
I was taking my case up with a lawyer against Jamaica, but I'm telling you, Andrew, the tables are going to turn because I live in Guyana. The tables, believe me, the tables are going to turn. And let me tell you this.
Yes.
Let me tell you this. Good. Before we get to Cuba, because I live in a world, I don't construct the world in my head and live accordingly. Good.
Right.
Let me tell you this. In the Quran, it says, God told Iblis, Satan, who you refer to as Satan, to prostrate all the angels, to prostrate before creation, before man, Adam. And he refused. All the others did. He refused. He and his band refused. He said, I'm created different from this one that is created of clay. Okay? This one that you want me, I'm putting out my emphasis word, to prostrate before, I am going to come before him and whisper from the back, the front, and everything and turn him against you. Okay? Turn man against God. God did not say to Satan, okay, you can do that. You and him and your followers go and have your world, and those who believe in me will have one. He said, his reply was, yes, but I will fill hell with you and them. The point I'm making to all the believers, all these religious people, is that even in God's realm and what God gave us, you have free will. But that free will, that yes, but what I'm saying, there's no absolute freedom. My point is, and I will be honest here, if tomorrow, don't tell me about Orphanali and them, they are a bunch of hypocrites in Guyana. In Guyana, you talk out against the government and you can't get a job, you can't get a contract, you can't get nothing.
That's true,
but yes. I didn't come in on your program.
Yes.
In this
but you can get, and you're right.
But listen, it was Jamaica that banned Walter Rodney.
I remember, but what I'm saying to you,
it was Jamaica
even
that
today.
Do you know when
Mr. Perreira?
Just a minute. Do you know when
Mr. Perreira
was preaching black liberation? Only 2 countries allow him to arrive in the Caribbean: Cuba and Guyana.
Yes. You are correct on everything, Mr. Perreira. What I'm saying to you, even today, there are conferences held in Jamaica about the injustice that was done to Walter Rodney. People still can say that what the Jamaican government did to Walter Rodney was wrong. I have been on this platform and Mr. Andrew Holness up to this point, and things can change tomorrow. He cannot just put me into prison for saying that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In Cuba and some of these other countries, you can go into prison. You can be imprisoned if you speak against the government. I'm not saying now that we're better, I'm just saying that at least we have that opportunity. If I had known that you had been blocked from Jamaica, I could write a letter to the Gleaner. Sometimes they don't publish it. I must agree with you that sometimes I write articles to the Gleaner and they don't publish it. But I can go to another source. I can go to here. I can write. I can create my own website and write an article saying that what was done to Mr. Perreira was wrong, and the Andrew Holness or the PNP government should not have done that. But in Cuba, they're not allowed to do that, are they?
Okay, let's say this. Every country has its laws, and the way it addresses what is called dissent, right?
Yes.
Or people who differ. In Cuba, a revolution, if you've been under sanctions, embargo, and all of that, a revolution will always be suspicious. There will always be lookout for those who they believe can become agents of the enemy.
Yes.
And they will watch you.
Fair.
There are those who they don't have to watch. Right? If I'm going out to meet you, if I'm going out to meet you and to talk against Israel and I look around, then maybe my politics, of course, is different.
Yes.
Good. So maybe your views are known, and of course you'll look out. In the United States, I can tell you something right now. There are people who I used to talk to on the WhatsApp in the States. I've lost track of them. I don't need them to tell me why. We know.
You're scared.
Everybody know. Now, if you're traveling from Guyana you're going to the States, certain people, they're checking your phones.
Yes.
They're checking your phones.
So we are becoming like them. We are becoming like Cuba now. And that's the whole point. That's the whole hypocrisy. That the same thing that the United States is complaining about Cuba, they are now adopting some of the same authoritarian.
You see, don't use the methods, confuse the methods with the program. It's a different things. You will always
Okay.
have, that's not, the point is this. Let me get back to this. You're saying, you're
Mhm.
looking at what is happening. You say, because they're doing this and they're doing this, is the same. Let's draw the difference.
Not now, I've
Who's
been
in this
looking at
now?
it from.
Okay, look, you had the
I studied,
American. Yeah, go on.
Mr. Perreira, I studied Cuba for my master's thesis, so I'm
Yes.
not just looking at it for now. It's something that I've been looking at for quite some time,
Okay.
and I
Okay.
got my master's in 2005.
Yes. The
So
difference
I've
is,
been
okay, look. Every revolution, it's a part of the dialectic. Every
Mhm.
revolution will breed an attempted counter-revolution.
Yes,
You agree with this,
yes, I agree
right?
100%.
Every movement for social change or religious change breeds a counter.
Hmm.
But you had the Reformation that went after the Catholic Church. Okay? The Catholic Church
Hmm.
came back with the counter-reformation. Good?
Hmm.
We had that.
Yes,
The
very good
American,
point.
yeah, the American Revolution, the American Revolution, if you want it. The American
Hmm.
Revolution, there were Americans, many Americans who did not want America to become independent.
Many of them,
They
correct?
wanted
And they went to Canada.
to
Hmm.
remain under Britain under King
British
George.
colonialism. Hmm.
Yes. They were referred to, they even call them the Tories. And
Yes, yes.
there were people with property, tremendous wealth. And Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers of the United States,
Hmm.
when Jefferson became president, there was an organized attempt by these forces. How did Jefferson react? This is to the counter to these people. Jefferson closed the churches, destroyed the printing press. Many were executed, many were imprisoned without a trial. Because what
Hmm.
was Jefferson defending? Jefferson was not defending the masses of the Americans. He was defending a class of people
Hmm.
who, at the time, all the founding fathers who signed the document
Hmm.
were
Hmm.
slaveholders.
Hmm.
You had the Shares
But
Rebellion. No, I'm coming to that.
yes,
So
yes.
the American Revolution was different, completely different to the Cuban Revolution. The American Revolution was a property class was tired of being lorded over, ruled by people who were miles and miles away from where they were. Right? Same thing with the Latin America. The Cuban that was a revolution to serve the liberal bourgeoisie. The Cuban
Yeah,
Revolution.
let's be fair though. Let's be fair to the American Revolution. Yes, what you're saying is true, but it was, as Obama said, and he's right. It was an experiment because even the founding fathers did not know that America would even last that long. Right? It was an experiment, and they were willing to learn as they went along. And that is why we were able to have the Civil War, and then it sort of created another America, and we have had many other versions of American freedom created afterwards. What we're seeing in Cuba is almost like a stagnant revolution, in my sort of humble perspective. Maybe to you, you
Well,
disagree with
I
that,
don't know
but
what
America
Obama
has
was.
long.
I don't know what
America
Obama.
has, but do you see what I'm saying though? The American Revolution
Okay,
is ongoing and has evolved over the years.
the American Revolution.
Has evolved over the years because,
In
as you
what way?
said, the founding fathers did not mean for it to encompass the entire populace in terms of freedom. But after the Civil War, the slaves themselves worked along with members of Congress to ensure that all American citizens were free. Well, we know that freedom is relative, as you're saying, free under the Constitution. So, and it has been, and we had the second iteration of the civil rights with people like the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So we can see in the United States, in fairness to them, that this has been an evolutionary form of evolution. But
I
in
don't
my
agree
mind,
with that.
Cuba is
I don't
stagnant.
agree.
Okay,
I'll tell you why.
okay.
If you look every year, Bastille, the
Hmm.
French come out
Revolution.
Macron with under the French Revolution. And
Yes.
if you go back and you read, you look at people like the French revolutionaries, what they were talking
Mm-hmm.
about,
Yes.
and what people like Macron and them is something completely different. The French Revolution at the time, the French Revolution at the time
Yes. Yes.
was like a plague seen by people like, and that is why uh, Burke in his book is reply to the conservative critique reply to the French Revolution. The French Revolution inspired
Mm-hmm.
many
The American
people.
Revolution. Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
the ideas,
No,
but
well, yeah, it was before.
yeah, but a lot even you know. Then you had people like Thomas Paine writing Common Sense from Britain and so, and then he was forced to go and live in the United States. But the liberal revolutions were not meant to emancipate the masses of society. It was meant to
I agree.
emancipate a class. The rise,
Correct.
you have to remember that the old feudal order was dying, and you had
Yes.
the rise of the mercantile bourgeoisie. Look at the
Yes.
look at Cromwell. Look what happened. Look at Cromwell. Cromwell led his army, and he was
Mm-hmm.
able to take power, and he executed Charles the First, Charles Stuart, the house of
Mm-hmm.
the Stuart.
Mm-hmm.
They were people who were in Cromwell's army. There was a group called the Levelers and the Diggers.
Mm-hmm.
You remember them? The Levelers.
Yes.
They were inspired by the radical, for them, the radical, by the teachings of the gospel. Good.
Mm-hmm.
And they were pressing Cromwell. They said, we have to carry this thing further. Because
Mm-hmm.
remember, after Cromwell, you had the restoration. Okay?
Yes.
Cromwell, after Cromwell, Charles, you had the king coming back, the restoration. But what happened was, Cromwell turned on his own army, on sections of his army and supporters, because
Mm-hmm.
they wanted what they fought for. They believed that Cromwell did not deliver. He went and
Mm-hmm.
he indulged in a sort of a historic compromise.
Mm-hmm.
And that is
Mm-hmm.
why we ended up today. You ended up, because remember, they chopped off Charles the First head and ended
Mm-hmm.
that nonsense but divine right of kings.
Mm-hmm.
Good. And
Do you realize that the U.S.
but then
Constitution is the
you
only yes.
arrange your political system that you call a constitutional democracy. You have a democracy. You say
Mm-hmm.
Britain is a democracy, but yet you have a king. You have a
Right.
king.
Right.
You have a king.
Right.
So I
Right.
don't know
Right.
how, if we have one that is saying we have the king, the navy is His Majesty's ship, His Majesty's postal service, His Majesty's armed forces. The king is the commander in chief of the army. The king,
Right. And
the military.
Mr. Perrer,
Yes. Yeah.
we are agreeing. I think we are
Yeah.
agreeing on every iota. You know what?
It's a
We
con.
disagree.
It's a con.
Yes, and we are able. You and I are able to come here with how many people online now and say that it is one. But if we
Yeah.
were to live in Cuba, as you said, Mr. Perrer, on many occasions on this platform, on this show, that the world is not perfect. And nothing that we do, whether you're going to your family or political ideology or philosophy, nothing that humans put their imprint on is perfect. But if we were to live or have a choice between the Cuban sort of way of life and what we have here, which though it is highly flawed, I would prefer this one. Because I can come and say what Trump is doing is rubbish. I don't like it. And it violates the Constitution. I can stand up for that. In fact, the United States could have had a civil war because of the Constitution. The Constitution said that all men are created equally, and they had to stop it.
No,
They were forced to stop it, and the
Andrew.
only reason why they were able to stop it because of what the Constitution said.
Before I get back
Yeah,
to
what
the
you said.
issue of a choice, the choosing where I had to live,
Yes,
before I get to that,
yes,
the American Civil War was not fought over the issue of slavery or the Constitution.
it
It was not.
was, but
No, I beg to
that
differ.
was not the.
No,
Let me clear.
go on,
Let's be
go
clear
on.
with that.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
terms of the elites, it wasn't. But in terms of the slaves and the working classes, it was. So there were two agendas in one. So that I would agree with you that from the elite perspective, from those of the political class and the planters, they did not have it for about. They were just looking at states' rights and the fact that they wanted slavery to be kept in
Okay,
as it
before we get
was,
to this with
right?
states'
But from the
rights,
working class and from the slave perspective, they turned their objective into suiting theirs. And what they used was the Constitution. Go ahead. The US
there is
Constitution.
there is an excellent book by Gerald Horn that has come in for a lot of lashing. I don't agree with
Mhm.
Horn that
Yes.
he
I
saying
know
what
Gerald
was the
Horn.
real American Revolution was about. I don't agree, and many historians have
Yes.
knocked him. But
Mhm.
I know you're an intellectual, you read and so you study. But I like to refer you to three interesting books that, just in case you've missed them, is
Mhm.
Howard Zinn, The People's History of America.
I've read some of his works. Yeah.
Good, yeah.
Mhm.
And there is Herbert Aptica, Democracy, Freedom, and the State in the U.S. This is one of America's great historians that was denied jobs at major
Mhm.
university because he was a member of the U.S.
Oh
Communist
yes,
Party.
I think I recently saw his, yes, and yeah,
Yes.
I found his name.
Michael
Came from-
Parenti's scholarly work, the great Michael Parenti,
Mhm. He's good too.
Democracy for the Few.
Mhm.
Then you have C. Wright Mills, The Power Elite.
Mhm.
And then you have E. Franklin Fraser, who wrote the
Mhm.
Black Bourgeoisie. That's people like
Mhm.
Obama and them. Okay. But
Yes.
getting back to what we were talking about by the Civil War, the American War.
Mhm. Yes.
What happened was, the book that you should remember is Manning Marble's book. It's a plain Walter Rodney's owner. You know Walter Rodney, how Europe and develop Africa. Manning Marble,
yes.
who was the chair, he was once the chair of the Democratic Socialists of America, of which Cornel West, I think, is now the chair. Mamdani is a member of that organization, DSA. He wrote a book. The title is How White America, I think, underdeveloped Black America. How White America. The point is, when you look at what was taking place, the war was really about the capitalist North, capitalism and the factories, the industrialization process that had kicked off in the North. And they needed that free movement, that abundance of labor that resided in the South. If you examine carefully the Lincoln-Douglas debates between Lincoln and Douglas.
I've read them. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Lincoln made it clear that we have two sets of people coexisting here, side by side. And he did not believe that both were equal and of the same. He believed that one was superior, and he gave the superiority to the white. Lincoln did not fight the Civil War. The Civil War was not about the emancipation of Africans from the South.
I agree with you. Yeah, because
the South had entered into tremendous economic relations with the former enemy, Britain.
Right. Because let's be clear. And W. Du Bois' book is the best book, I think, on that
Correct.
very detailed book.
That's
that
right.
He wrote
I agree.
on Black
I agree.
Reconstruction.
That's right.
And he talked about it and was very clear in that book.
That's right.
Let's be clear here that the guy, Abraham Lincoln, was not anti-slavery. He was not. What he was anti was the expansion of slavery. We're in the time now, because they had made slavery so much a part of the American economy, that as they found new territories like California and those in the Midwest, they wanted to take slavery over there too. And Abraham Lincoln was against that. He thought that slavery should just be in the South and should not be expanded into new territories. In fact, America wanted to buy even Cuba at the time and some other countries in Central America, right?
Yeah.
So that was what I'm saying to you, Mr. Pereira, that yes, Abraham Lincoln was not, but the slaves forced his hand too do what they wanted him to do. And this is what I'm saying to people now, that the wars that are being waged are not to free us. And that's what I'm saying. We have to look at but we are the ones now who have to look beyond what they're doing and say, you don't want to free us and liberate us, but you have to do it because
Well,
we are the ones in charge. We are
I
the
agree
ones
with you.
who've placed
I
you
do
there.
not believe
And
in
that
the
is what
first
the
place.
slaves did. And we don't do that now. We are
I do
blinded
not
thinking that
believe.
they're fighting
I do not
wars for
believe.
us.
Do
Yes.
not believe that ever, that those who committed genocide and who are committing genocide, those who enslaved
Yes.
Africans, I do not
Yes.
believe those who were pushing, those who pushed Hitler, who were supporting Hitler, they supported Hitler. The United States, powerful players, the Rockefellers, the DuPont, they were supporting Hitler against the Soviet Union because they hated the communists. Remember, they even
Mm-hmm.
hated Roosevelt with the New Deal. They
Mm-hmm.
saw Roosevelt as a communist because he carried
Yes.
economic reform. They supported,
Correct.
they all were Nazi. George Bush, grandfather Prescott Bush, was a Nazi banker, was banking money for the
But let's be
Nazis.
clear too that
But what I'm
Roosevelt
saying is,
was a part of the
yes,
same elite class,
yeah, but what I'm saying,
and
yeah,
he
but
only did that.
the elite
He
of the
only did that,
capitalist class. Yes,
right?
yes,
And he only did that because he was also opposed by the working class, and they were going to have a revolution that would have
yeah,
seen perhaps the end of America. There was going to be a serious revolution, and he
yeah.
learned about that, and he was forced. It's just like Abraham Lincoln; his hand was forced to do things for the working class that they probably he didn't want to do, but he had to do. Are we
Andrew,
forcing our governments to do things now? Yes.
do you know who financed the first edition of Mein Kampf, Hitler's book, My Struggle?
Yes.
Henry Ford.
Yes. It's a Wall Street. These guys. Yeah.
When there was a big strike on Ford's hand, Hitler said to the American ambassador to Germany, he said, I wish I could send a detachment of my stormtroopers to deal with the
Yes.
strikers. Hitler said that.
Yes. Yes.
Good. So
Yeah.
they only came into the war because they had this isolationist policy. They only came into the war because of Pearl Harbor. And
Yes.
Japan was an ally of Nazi Germany. That's what brought them into the
Yes.
war. But the Western nations, the United States, they were happy. They were appeasing. They kept making concessions to Hitler. They were appeasing Hitler. They were glad. They wanted Hitler to kick the Soviet Union in. That was what they
Yeah.
wanted. Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Wall
wanted
Street
Hitler
is
to
a
support.
business.
Yeah, that's
It's a
right.
business.
They didn't
You know,
mind. They didn't
and
mind.
this is what I
Yeah.
want you, Mr. Pereira. This is you're brilliant in terms of. There's an article that anti-war. I don't know if you read that paper online. They do give a
Yes, I
recap
know.
of the
Yeah, I know
the
it.
major important
I know.
stories. And there is
Yeah.
a very interesting article like it. And I saw the one that you shared with me on WhatsApp this up today. But this one is very interesting, and I think that and we're going to go through it and see that these people are playing us. The state he's saying here is socializing the cost of the Iran war. So we are talking about capitalism here, but he's saying that the military-industrial complex in the United States is a socialist institution, right? Because look at what they're doing. He says war is often sold to the public as an act of national will, decisive, necessary, and under control. The bill arrives later in a quieter form. It shows up in insurance markets, shipping rates, emergency guarantees, higher fuel prices, and sudden policy reversal designed to keep the economic damage from spreading too far or too fast. This is what is now happening with the US-Israeli war on Iran. The fighting is not only destroying lives and widening instability, it is also revealing something more familiar about the American state. When private actors no longer want to bear the risk of a war Washington helped ignite, Washington moves to spread that risk across everyone else. What would you say about that
Well,
statement,
first
Mr.
of
Pereira?
all, first of all, my brother, some of these
Yes.
there is a tendency in the U.S. going back to the
Yes.
days of there's an institute. I can't recall the name right away, but it was uh, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was one of the early uh, persons involved. He had set up this think tank. Uh, Anyhow, their position
Yes.
is, and they're right wing, and I can see the right wing element in this that I was reading
Yes.
that you just read. You know, this group argued that free enterprise and capitalism are not the same. And
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Okay? People think that I'm not talking about free market because there's no such thing as free
Yes. Yes.
market.
Mm-hmm.
Free
Mm-hmm. I understand what you're saying.
enterprise and
Neoliberalism.
capitalism are not the same.
Mm-hmm.
Capitalism has the built-in tendency to concentrate wealth in few and few hands. And there is no system more hostile. These guys are not communists, nor are they Marxists. They're saying, they've been arguing for decades, that the capitalist system is a threat to free enterprise, that it destroys free enterprise. And you
Well, well,
notice
well,
every
Marx
time
did
there's a
say.
recession, every time there's a
Mhm.
collapse, the people who go, the businesses that go out of business is the small and medium-sized businesses.
Correct.
And the
Correct.
capitalists, you get mergers, acquisitions, and takeover. Good. In a free enterprise system, people should be able to utilize the market without any class being in a position, any power being in a position to use the mechanism, any sort of mechanism, to allow or to allow for monopolization, monopoly capital. Okay, that has been their argument. It is
Mm-hmm.
simplistic to say, well, oh, socializing. Uh, Socializing, we all human beings, we socialize. I don't make us socialistic. Okay, good. Americans have been, Americans heard about the free healthcare system in the farthest Eastern Bloc countries in Cuba. The minute you talk about socialized medicine, oh, we don't want socialized medicine. So communistic socialized medicine sound like you're going in a Nazi camp. Good. But they pay them. How many Americans, hundreds of thousands who have lost their homes from just because they had to pay medical bills? Okay, good. So that is a very simplistic but spread the cost. That's nothing to do. Socialism is from what I socialism. Socialism is not the state controlling. And we've always had an argument with it. Socialism does not mean state control of a factory right down to a baking shop. No, that's not socialism. Socialism is primarily first about recognizing the dignity of the human person, people before
Mm-hmm.
profits. Profit must be
Mm-hmm.
used to measure the performance of a business or a company, but it must not be
Mm-hmm.
the overriding value, right? The second thing is socialism is about popular forms of ownership of the economy, people's ownership, and that can take, not state control, that can take various forms. Cooperatives that were highly successful in many countries. Even the kibbutz system was successful in Israel. Good.
Mm-hmm.
You can have genuine public ownership, and I'm drawing the line between that and state. And you have private ownership. Good. Private ownership, but there, of course, all of these private ownership and all that, all these must operate within a national framework that allows for the development of each and every one in the country. So you have what some people refer to as a mixed economy. So socialism is not about socialism. It doesn't mean you don't your property is taken away and all that. I lived in socialist. The official name of Libya was the Socialist People's Jamahiriya, meaning the state to the masses. And their socialism was different to the socialism you find that the Eastern Bloc had, or even Cuba or any other country.
Yeah, different have
There
different
was
brands of
private
socialism.
ownership, there
Yeah,
was private
yeah,
ownership, there was cooperative ownership, there was everything. The what was made in companies and so on, in factories and all of that, there was workers committees, there was management. You had committees, popular people's committees of management. It wasn't no
yes.
general manager sitting there and just sitting at the apex and decided. You could not dismiss a worker, right? Workers had to, if you had to discipline a worker, then that had to come before the workers' representatives. So that is how it worked. It was a state of the masses, not a state of the capitalist state where
Okay,
the
so
people.
what would you describe this as what they're doing with the wars, right? That they invest huge billions of dollars into starting these wars, right? When they find themselves losing the war and not being able to continuing with the war, they create other sort of structures that force the people who didn't want war in the first place to have to pay for these wars, right? While the
That's it.
billionaires and so forth, they go scot free. What do you call that?
That's books have been written, but this is the military industrial complex. And look
Yeah,
at
but
they've
yeah,
extended.
the
Yeah, but
military-industrial
what they're doing
complex
is
practices
war.
economic monopoly. They
America,
have economic.
what America produces, it's a permanent war economy. War is business for them.
Correct.
They sell the
Correct.
weapons, they sell the weapons, they
Yes.
make the weapons, they create the wars. And they create these
But
wars that we've seen
yes.
on the basis of
Yes.
lies.
But what the
And then
article
they
is
need to
saying,
sell
Mr.
it.
Pereira, is
Yes.
that the private business, the Wall Streets and these top corporations are the ones
Yes.
who are. They are not the, well, state, so called, right? They're just private
Yeah.
enterprise.
Yeah.
Maybe they are. But the fact of the matter is they don't want to lose. So because they don't want to lose, and when they appear that they're losing financially, then they are going to give us the charge. They're going to place a charge on the populace, on the state,
Of course.
to take
That's right.
care
That's true.
of
That's
their
what they
own.
always do. That's what they always do.
Yes. And what do
Exactly.
we call that?
That's not about
Stealing?
socialism. That's about
The stealing.
that is about
The
demons
stealing.
making sure that they come out the winners one way or the other. One way or the other.
Right,
Because
right,
you
right.
know that's an important point because
Yes.
what I was saying is a lot have been written about this, the military industrial complex and so on, the banks and all that. But you see, this bankers, the banksters, right? The banksters and all those people, they may not be the
Mm-hmm.
state, but remember, the state is not neutral.
You're
The
correct.
state, the, the state is not an umpire making sure that the game go right.
You're
The
right.
state,
You're right.
the state represents a particular class and its interests.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when
Mm-hmm.
you vote, whether you vote for Democrat or Republican, you don't remove those people who really control the state apparatus, and they're unelected officials. Yeah.
Wouldn't you
So
say? Wouldn't you say?
you can elect political elites to Congress, and they go in the Senate. They go in the Senate.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that state embodies the will of that class. And of
Yes.
course, no class is you can't find any class, any capitalist class that will agree 100% on everything. They will have the
Mm-hmm.
differences. But when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to the enemies of that class, they will circle the wagon
Absolutely. Wouldn't you say, Mr. Pereira?
and deal with you.
Wouldn't you say that communism and capitalism are coming from the same soil from Western political thought? Where is it coming
Oh
from? Is
yes,
communism an Eastern political
yes,
thought?
yes,
So
yes.
why is it that if the West is so demonic as we sometimes say, why is it that we sometimes embrace communism? Why do we see communism as better than capitalism when they're coming from the same soil?
Now, Andrew, if you go to our website,
Mm-hmm.
OVP, WWOVP
Oh
Guyana,
yes, yes. I know
you
your
will
website. Yeah.
you will see. Now I just want to make, you got to be. I My argument fundamentally with communist
Mm-hmm.
theory is,
Mm-hmm.
or Marxism generally, and not even Marx, because I think if you really get into Marx and you study him, I think Marx was looking more at religion, the role it played, the social function, rather than religion as, in terms of a belief system, a body of belief, what have you.
He
You
was an
know?
atheist. He was eventually an atheist. Yeah, Marx.
Yes. My argument with what is called scientific communism or modern communism is the philosophical materialism that denies a transcendental reality. That I believe in I believe I believe in the the Almighty Creator. I believe who created
Mm-hmm.
me. I believe in
Yes.
death. I believe in death, resurrection, and judgment. I make no apology for that. I'm a believer, Muslim Christian. Yes, I understand that. My argument, Sekou Touré was a
Mm-hmm.
Muslim, and
Yes.
Sekou learned, he said, yes, there are things of dialectical materialism, and so we could use, but we have a problem with the philosophical materialism. My argument with modern communism is the denial of the spiritual reality. There's a spiritual dimension to our existence, spirit. That man is essentially a spiritual being. I believe that we're essentially spiritual beings. Good. We're multi, you can't divide. We're spiritual, social, economic beings, and all that. But
Mm-hmm.
the body perishes and the spirit. I believe that. I believe that a revolution should
So, do
always
you think
emphasize.
they're different? Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think
The
that
other
they
thing we
are different?
emphasize too.
And why
Yes.
do we accept one that is coming from Western Hemisphere,
Yes. Yeah.
a
I
Western
also
construct?
believe that a revolution should, I believe in the spiritual revolution. I believe that our conception of revolution is more than social, economic, and political. I believe in the spiritual
Mm-hmm.
revolution. I believe that we, as we struggle to change the world, have to consistently keep struggling against ourselves. And what do I
Yes.
mean? Right? We as human beings can rise from the base level to high levels, or we can remain at the base, the animal level. We can remain there. And I believe the spiritual revolution is about creating the new being. The being who primary reason for being to live is to serve your fellow human beings. I believe in that.
Mm-hmm.
I have used all my education and knowledge never to acquire wealth and property, but to do what I can do to raise people's consciousness, to educate them, to fight for what is the truth. And I believe there is a very good book on that all the prophets that came were prophet revolutionaries. And I comment that's a tradition. I don't fight for office, my brother. I fight for human liberation. If
Okay,
the
so
people,
the only reason why you think that communism is not a bad necessarily economic model is its revolutionary component. Is that what you're saying?
it has, no one can deny the communists are not our enemies. They achieved a lot. Those countries did achieve a lot. But, it's interesting because, North Korea, Kim Il Sung, who was the founder of North Korea, he wrote an excellent piece. Not Kim Il Sung, his son Jong Un wrote an excellent piece. Jong Il, when the Eastern Bloc collapsed, he said the mistake that they made. It's interesting that the Eastern Bloc made and the Koreans obviously is they focus too much on the material aspect of development. They're not saying that that's not important, but they did not place a lot on the ideological consciousness of people. I believe that if you organize people just around their material needs, of course that's important. But if you do not emphasize the ethical, moral, and spiritual dimension of what you're doing. When those material needs vanish, just for a short period, people can turn against you. They will
You
turn
know,
against you.
Marx said that capitalism will eventually morph into socialism, socialism into communism. Do you think that the United States is on that version? That's why maybe because maybe years ago, many U.S. citizens didn't care about social health care, right? But when they see now the fact that capitalism, neoliberalism, has taken them to this stage where they're destitute, many can't afford health care in the United States. They don't mind a social healthcare system now. So, do you think what did Marx mean by that? Do you think we are at the stage of capitalism now that many will
Well,
be calling soon for socialism?
Marx developed what was called the dialectical and historical materialist view of history, dialectical and historical materialism.
Hmm. Hmm.
And Marx argued that we had primitive communism, society, hunter gatherer, primitive forms, primitive communism, and then we went to slave societies like during Rome and Greece and all those periods, the Greco-Roman civilization,
Hmm.
to slave societies that you see. Marx and Engels spoke about what's called the negation of the negation. It sounds heavy, but what's meaning is that within each social system carry the seeds of its own negation. It comes up,
Hmm.
it rises, and then gives way to something else. Good. So primitive communism gave way to slave societies. Good. Where you had the master, the slave itself.
And the
And then that
slave,
gave
yeah.
way to feudal society with the serfs and the lords and the thing and that. And then
Mhm.
slave feudalism gave way to capitalism, and then capitalism will give way to socialism, and then socialism will give way to a higher form of communism. But that is how Marx put it. But that's not an iron law. That's not something I believe. That I don't believe that because Marx identified that way, it's going to happen. Human agency. People have to consciously struggle for socialism. It's not going to just come about by an evolution. And that was the argument between the revolutionary socialists and the evolutionary ones. The ones who say, well, okay, like what you were talking about, the contradictions, these things will happen, and then they will evolve, and then you will move from here. Like what you were talking about, they see the medical care, you know, they ain't got a problem with that. They want it free, and then they will evolve. That's what the social democrats. Uh, that's what divided the social democrats in the early days of the Socialist International from the communists or the revolutionary socialists. Good. I believe socialism is something that you consciously have to fight for. You have to organize and fight for it. The capitalists are not just going to allow it to evolve. You have to fight for it. Nothing. The
Mhm.
ruling classes, oppressors don't give the history. History has taught us that the oppressors don't wake up one morning and just have a Paul in the road to Damascus awakening, or uh, just you have to fight for it. You have to fight for it.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Cuba is we're counting down now. Cuba is going to fall. Well, not fall in the sense of a country. It's going to remain, but the revolution. I think that we are at the point where this revolution is about to fall. We don't know
When I
when.
see that,
Eh,
when I
we,
see that, I believe it.
oh, you don't believe it. You don't believe that the revolution is going
I
to ever
I
fall.
believe in the resilience of the. I When I see it, I am not a seer. When I see it, I believe it.
Mhm.
When I
Okay.
see it, I believe it.
Okay.
Yep.
And so what do you think is next for Cuba? Let me ask you that question. What is next? What do you see based on the patterns? And you've been to Cuba more times
Yep.
than I have. What do you see coming next for Cuba, and how do you think the Cuban people will deal with it?
I Trump 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 said he will have the honor of taking Cuba. Well, let's see about that. They
Yes.
ever since the collapse ever since the collapse of the Eastern Bloc, and people need to get this straight. There's Che Guevara. Che
Yes.
Guevara had his own issues with the Soviet model. Anybody, if you study socialist theory and practice, Che Guevara had strong disagreements with the Soviet model of socialism. Che Guevara did. A Cuban
Argentina.
economist, yeah, after the collapse of the Eastern Bloc, a Cuban economist by the name of Carlos Tablada wrote an excellent book on the way forward. And Cuba started opening up on certain things and so, because allowing the market, the mechanism of the market and all that to operate and so. Because I think the Cubans recognize something that eventually that other socialist traditions did acknowledge, whether it was Libya, Iraq, or Nasserite, or in other countries, that the market is not the market and capitalism is not the same.
Yes.
Markets predated capitalism. And may
Yes.
you know a
You're
market,
correct.
anywhere a transaction take place, a money is a market. Good? Human beings were sold openly in the marketplaces as slaves. Good? So we have
I
the
think the
market.
Jews were. Yeah, I think that if
Yeah.
you ask me, the Jews were the originators of capitalism. In fact, if you should ask me, the West like to think so. The Europeans like to believe that they are the originators of capitalism. But
That's
I think
right.
the
And
Jews were.
isn't it interesting also? Isn't it interesting
Yeah.
that all the early communist leaders were Jews?
That too. That
Rosa
too, including
Luxemburg
Marx
was a Jew.
himself. Was a,
Trotsky was a Jew.
Marx
Karl
himself.
Weideck was a
Yeah.
Jew. Yeah. Many Jews. And also the Frankfurt School, that the Frankfurt
The
School of
German.
cultural Marxism that emerged in Germany. A
Yes.
lot of their philosophers were also Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a lot of the some of the guys who are not capitalists and not communists always point that, and we point that we're not I'm not for capitalism or communism, but
do
I'm
do
not
you
anti.
think that Cuba is going the way
What I
that
suppose.
Venezuela is going? It's going to
No,
go.
I don't
Yeah,
think
go ahead.
so. I think that Cuba, and I hope, I think Cuba is going to resist. And I think Cuba started a lot carrying out reforms, and they don't need anybody to tell them, push that down their throat. They're a sovereign country, and they have to do that. They're carrying that out. I lived in, when I lived in Libya, I lived in Libya when the unfair and
For
unjust
that.
blockade was imposed on Libya for Lockerbie at something that Libya had nothing to do about. Nothing to do about.
Yes.
And the only time you knew in Libya that you were under sanctions was when you had to fly out aircraft could only fly within domestic flights.
Yeah.
To get out, you
Yes.
had to go either by sea to Malta or road to Egypt or to Tunisia. Otherwise, to that, things were all right. They survived. But that, they had implemented. And then when they realized that that blockade didn't work, that thing. And Libya did the right thing. Libya said, okay, look, we'll take responsibility. You said that we were responsible for Lockerbie. They paid money, take it off, and thought that was it, the end of it. But they got the breathing space. They start to have this type of rapprochement with the West and thing and all that. But you know something, Andrew? Students of history, you look at the American people, the indigenous people, the original American people, the indigenous people of America.
Right.
They have a lot of people too. Let me tell you something about the Anglo-Saxons, and we've seen it. They are unforgiving. When you think that you have made your peace with them, they're coming back for you. They are coming back. You've seen it.
Yeah.
When
how many assassination attempts on Castro?
That's right.
Have they
That's
had?
right.
And this is ongoing. As I'm saying, this has been ongoing. This is not just yesterday. This is a build-up. And now I think, in my opinion, we are at the apex of that build-up. And it's when,
Andrew, for your listeners, the viewers, every year in South Africa, they commemorate the Battle of Insonderland, where the Zulu army on the Quetzal defeated the British Army. The British Army was the most technologically advanced army in the world in terms of its weaponry. They had all sorts of guns that you turn and, all those sophisticated weaponry. And the Zulus, armed with the shield and the assegai, instead of throwing it, they shortened it so they can stab and still have it rather than throwing it away. And the Zulus defeated the British, wiped them off the battlefield. General Kitchener. They said Queen Victoria wept. The Zulus allowed the British to pass, the wounded and everything, gathered the ones who were wounded to leave Zululand to go. The Zulus didn't say, well, look, let's slaughter every one of them.
Right.
This is African, the superiority, African moral superiority. They said, go your way. They allowed them to pass. What did the British do? The British went, regrouped, came back with more powerful fiery power and everything, and flattened Zululand. The rest is history. The point I'm making is, if we don't learn from our history, these people are deceivers. And as Rosemary Radford Reuter, the feminist theologian, said, she said, we, and she was being honest, she talking about the white Anglo-Saxon. She said the reason that we were able to dominate the world, white people, was through the 3Ds. Deception, destruction follows, and then they dominate you. You know the man who wrote, Samuel Huntington. He wrote a book that I read all the years when I was doing political science called Political Order and Change in Societies. But he's well known for the book, this book that he wrote, the last one, not
the one that you spoke,
No, anyhow, it just slipped me. And he said, we, the white race, the Anglo-Saxon, we did not dominate the world because we were intellectually or morally superior or anything like that. He said, no. He said the reason we were able to dominate is because we understood, we knew how to organize violence in a systematic and way. He said that.
You're right. Yes. And to normalize it. And
it. And normalize
too,
it, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why France,
because what Trump is doing,
that type of violence can only be dealt with the revolutionary violence and more violence of the oppressed. Do not appeal to the beast. The beast has no ability to reason.
Correct. Because when you listen to Trump, you really wonder if you're looking at a Rambo show, a Western show, because you wonder if this is real, that a president could be talking in the way and using violence, that he uses it in public. Right. It's just extraordinary. It's unthinkable.
The clash of civilization.
Yes. Well, let's go into some of our comments, and I hope that you can send some questions to Mr. Perreira. I see Annie here saying, look at Brazil's carnival, how white it is. And Brazil is the second most populous African country in the world, with a population of over 200 million people. What do you say to that, Mr. Perreira? The carnival is very... Right. Yeah,
it's right.
Yeah, it's white. And when you look at also, you go to the business places there, it's white.
Yeah.
When you go to their top business, whether it's in Salvador or it's in Rio or it's in the largest city, Sao Paulo, just all white. You think that you're in Europe.
Yes.
Brazil. So we understand that. I think Brazil,
in the TV shows and all that, you don't see black uncles, African uncles.
Yes. And when you ask them, incidentally, I said, why are black people so, at the lower end of the economic spectrum? And they would just say, well, it's not because of racism. They say we have racial democracy here. It's just that it's just what it is. It's almost like it's nature. Nature has set it up that way, and they don't have anything to do with it. That's how
it's like
it.
It's like, they refer to India as the world's largest democracy. But then you have an estimated
Mm-hmm.
36 million so-called untouchables who
Yeah.
don't have the right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and
yeah,
even when they go to the United States, Mr. Pereira, I was at a church when I was in the States, Brazilian church, right? And there was this black Brazilian, dark as I am, and he had a white Brazilian wife, and they had kids, which obviously are mixed kids, right? So
yeah,
I can't remember how the conversation came up, and I said, "Your kids are, are mixed. They are going to be considered here as black, or
yeah.
mulattoes, whatever. Well, Americans don't say mulattoes; they just say black." And he was offended. The black Brazilian was offended that I was calling his kids black or mixed. He thinks that they're white. I mean, he stopped talking to me just by, and I was just having an ordinary conversation like I'm having with you guys now, and he was not for it. He was offended by what I said. He said that his children are white.
You know, brother,
This is
brother, I always say to people, I say, white supremacy is more than a system. It's like a disease. It's like a virus. It can infect any one of us, even sometimes the most conscious people, if you're not careful.
yes,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
you can. Because even some progressive elements, sometimes you hear what come out of their mouth and they're left shocked. You say, what?
Mm-hmm,
Because
mm-hmm.
yeah, you gotta be careful because like a virus that
The
can infect
virus.
even people. Yeah, who are revolutionaries?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I always make this clear. Like because I am what my mother was pure African and my father was
You're
Portuguese.
telling me
I'm black.
Portuguese. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but not pure. So
Mm-hmm.
you get named Pereira.
Mm-hmm.
But my great grandfather, we had slave. He was a man who was fleeing uh, royal absolutism and thing in Portugal, thing and so on, Madeira. And he came to the Caribbean. He stopped in Barbados, married an African woman, a black woman, and came to Guyana. Right?
Mm.
The history.
So your,
And
your
I
mother
had
is Bajan? Your
no,
mother is Bajan?
my grandmother, my great
Your
grandmother.
grandfather. Your grandfather. Right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right, right, right.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, my great grandfather stopped in Barbados, but he came from
I
Madeira.
got you. I
And
got you. I got
yeah,
you.
married
Mm-hmm.
an African woman from Barbados. My great
Mm-hmm.
grandmother Barbados. So I got Bajan roots, proud of it. Anyhow,
Right.
the thing is, when I go to Barbados, I'm treated like royalty, man.
Mm.
Yeah, that's my
Yeah, you
second
are
home.
Bajan
That's
by
my second home. Yeah,
heritage
I
too.
love the Barbadians. They're lovely, amazing people.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, so
Yes.
yeah, so yes, I'm telling you about this thing. So people sometimes we have this thing of the plantation. You got to understand the sociology and the psychology of the plantation. So those of us who are the brown skin Africans, because if you live in Africa, my brother, there you think you are dark, man. They got all shades from the darkest of the dark to the because this is the home of humanity. You know, this is the home of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are those who are fair skinned, but their hair very woolly hard,
Yes. They have a
right?
name.
Good. Now, if you
Yes.
look at a place like in Libya and Morocco, especially Libya, the land of years ago they called Put, you see, most Libyans have afros,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they have that original, the African mix of Berber, Arab, everything, right? And that's why Gaddafi said, look, he said, we have an African identity. Those who are like Africa should leave Africa. Africa for Africans.
Mm-hmm.
He said, that's
Mm-hmm.
Garvey said. But why I'm telling you that
Mm-hmm.
is because the psychology and the psychology of the plantation of condition us like the ones who are so dark hate themselves. They call it this. They cut and they're bleaching themselves to look like the other said.
Like Europeans, lighter. Yeah,
Yes,
to
and the
have a
other said
lighter
yes.
shade.
And people refer
Mm-hmm.
to, and then you hear some people. We have a term, red man. You know about red man?
We're a man in Jamaica too. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, red man. The red man is meant to be Africans who mix. So when you hear people that just say,
Mm-hmm.
hold it, hold it, hold it, we got to cut this nonsense out. You know? Cut this nonsense out.
Mm-hmm.
But red, this is how they divided us. We're all Africans,
Mm-hmm.
period. Period.
Yes. Yes.
Let me
Yes.
tell you
Yes.
something, Andrew. I never had an identity problem. I
Mm-hmm.
came out from primary school, high school. I came out. I was going to school with my black power button with a pant on it. And I came out of a black woman, a dark woman, and I knew I was African. I said, if I come out of there, that's
Mm-hmm.
what I am.
Mm-hmm.
My name don't determine my identity, who I am. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
So making that clear. So when you say, Brooke, I say, hold it. Let's cut this nonsense out. When you go to buy, tell them you go, in very simple terms, you go to buy green paint, they bring out a chart with 100 shades of green. But green is green. So Africa's like that.
I like
You go to
that.
Africa,
Yes.
you see
Yeah.
there's some Ethiopians who are so fair. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you've seen it. You know what I'm talking about,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ethiopians, because you are talking about the home of humanity. That's where
Mm-hmm.
there I believe this. I absolutely believe this. I believe this is not about racial superiority or anything or what go back. I believe the Quran said he created you out of dark clay.
Yeah.
I believe that God created one being, a human part humans, and it wasn't about race. And out of that race, that people came all people, all, and that's the African. Do you know? I think I mentioned this to you. I think about 20 something years ago, a group of white scientists were carrying out research, and they were it
Mm-hmm.
was all in the CBS and Katikuri and all them were saying,
Yes.
well, if you
Yeah.
might be blonde and blue eyed, no, you're not this. And you know what the white scientists found? This is not black scientists. They found they were able to identify a gene and separate it. They found this gene
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
it's in every human group. The Inuit people,
Mm-hmm.
what we call the Eskimo, everybody. But it is more dominant in the African.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what they arrived at? They arrived, they're saying that it proves that all the races came out of the African. But Elijah Muhammad was preaching that long before these white scientists
Mm-hmm.
discovered. But he was
Mm-hmm.
dismissed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dismissed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think okay, Andrew is speaking about the political elites. Yeah, I think that yeah, you so Mr. Pereira, you don't think that there. How would you describe the political elites, or do you think that there are political elites, and how do you describe them?
One of the things I'm careful with the use of the word. I'm not saying that elites don't exist, but the political elites. I refer to, if I'm going to use the term political elites, I normally would identify those who take it upon themselves to, without the blessings of the people, without the approval of the people, to speak for the people, right? The political
Mm-hmm.
elites are those who the political elites could be people who lead political parties, who
Mm-hmm.
get into parliament, who start to manage the state apparatus. They can become uh, uh, ministers or general managers or advisors or so.
Senators.
And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it is not that political elite it's a bad word. It's not like the inherent in the word is bad, but very often we use it in a very negative terms, right? It's used
Mm-hmm.
negatively
Mm-hmm. It
to
is yes,
refer to
pejorative.
people who are, yes,
Mm-hmm.
who are divorced from the reality, the people whose lifestyle has nothing to do, and all of that. So, I mean, people
Which
might,
many of our political class don't they can't connect with the reality. That's for sure. Even those of them who actually came from lower
yeah,
economic, stratum, right
yeah.
now where they are, they it's impossible
Mhm.
for them to connect with everyday reality of the working
Let me
class.
give you an example of something. I see PLO Lumumba is talking about political parties are not for Africa. Well, this is nothing new. Nkrumah, Sekou Toure, and them understood this. And that's why they were trying to build mass party, one party state, because they know that it doesn't work in Africa. I noticed the president of Guinea, Conakry, the military guy, says he's banning out political parties. Good. Because those are Western impositions, came with colonialism.
Mhm.
But I'll tell you something.
Yes,
In Libya, there was no political parties because they never had a history of that. What they had is based on the Islamic Shura thing. So what they did was to create assemblies, conferences of the people. So if you lived in a certain area, that's what they created what you call Basic People's Congress. So at 18, you
correct.
join it. So you're allowed to participate in decision making. Every Basic People's Congress would elect a People's Committee, which is like a governing body. But the Basic People's Congress can recall you. If you're not serving the interests of the field, you don't have to wait for elections to move you or anybody remove. You are recalled. So, and you go right up to, at the national level, the General People's Congress, right?
Mm.
The General People's Congress will represent people from all the basic committee congresses from all over the country. So that's like a national parliament. And the General People's Committee becomes the body that have the secretaries or the ministers. So they had this big debate going on at the base level. And the Secretary for Education, which is the equivalent to the Minister of Education, he was a very scholarly man. And there was this huge debate with a representative of the National Union of Students, National Union of Libyan Students. And the student went after the Minister of Education. He said, you made decisions that were not democratic. You violated
Hmm.
the principles of the revolution and so. And there was this huge debate, and the minister lost it. And he said to the student, how dare you lecture me on the ideology and about the revolution? He lost it. And
Wow.
they called, when it was time to take a vote, you have your cards in different colors, and they removed the Secretary for Education right there because the people understood what the student was saying. Everything was laid out, the case, everybody, what happened, everything, and he was found wanted, and he was removed. He was no longer after that basic Secretary for Education. So Gaddafi didn't save him. He couldn't be taken from there, from education, and put somewhere else. He went back to an office to work, ended up lecturing, and then somewhere he went, they nominated him as ambassador. Good. But what I'm saying, nothing is perfect, Andrew, because human beings are not perfect and we can never build perfect systems. But
Absolutely.
we are beings who should be in pursuit of perfection. We're not perfect, but I think we seek to serve a perfect God. So
Hmm.
nothing is perfect, but socialism allows for the not just the social and economic advancement of the human being, but ethical and spiritual advancement. And that's why we talk about the spiritual socialism. It's spiritualized. The bad part we
Yes.
speak about
Yes.
cannot
Yes.
ignore the spiritual dimension. It is
Hmm.
real.
Hmm.
It exists. It is what drives us.
Yes.
If man was purely Homo economicus, if we were purely economic beings, right? I do not believe that we don't just fight wars for economic and material. We fight wars also for moral reasons, for principles, for higher
Hmm.
principles. We fight war.
Correct. What about Gaza and linking it to what is happening here in the Caribbean? Is that an exaggeration, or do you think that there are some aspects that we need to look at in Gaza and see how some of those things are being played out here, particularly in Haiti and Cuba? What would you say?
Well, if we say that Gaza is an example of resistance globally, you will see that Gaza has become a term now for based on what you
Resistance.
saw they did in
Mm-hmm.
Gaza, the deaths, the
Mm-hmm.
destruction.
Mm-hmm.
They've been doing that to Haiti for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
people of Haiti have
Mm-hmm.
suffered a long time. You know, those who
Mm-hmm.
pretended. You remember when Haiti had that terrible earthquake in what year it
Earthquake in
was?
2010.
Yes,
Mm,
that's right.
2010.
Do you know the first people to arrive there to help the Haitian people were the Cubans?
The Cubans, yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
When
Very
they had
true.
that
Mm-hmm.
ship with COVID, you remember that ship that had the COVID?
Mm-hmm.
People, nobody
Mm-hmm.
wanted it. It was Cuba that took it in.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was Cuba.
In Barbados, yeah,
And you know,
Jamaica.
Andrew, this
Yeah.
is the thing that brings me to I don't know how people read. It brings me to John
Mm-hmm.
Gospel where it says, greater love has no man than he who would lay down his life
Than
for his
this.
friend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the slogan is defend Cuba, Cuba defends humanity. No revolution
Mm-hmm.
is perfect. The Cubans have done
Mm-hmm.
tremendous for humanity. And it's
Tremendous. And we are
humanity,
not here.
nothing is perfect
Right.
because we are
Yes.
not
And when I
perfect.
speak about Yes. When I speak about Cuba, I'm not speaking, and perhaps Jamaica or Guyana or
Yeah,
any of the countries per se. I am not speaking about the ordinary. And a lot of time, Trinidad is attacking me. Oh, you're talking that about us. But I'm not, they don't understand. I'm not talking about them, the ones who don't have the power to effectuate policies in a country. I'm looking at the leaders in our countries and seeing how are they, how much are they responsible for what the ordinary man is going through. Obviously, the Cubans are some of the most gracious people you find in the world. And as you said,
yeah,
Mr. Pereira, during that Haitian earthquake, the doctors from the United States were going and just cutting off people's limbs. I don't know if you
yes,
saw documentaries on that.
yes,
They
yes. I saw
weren't
that.
patient enough to look at the Haitian and what they went through, the trauma that they went through, and see how best they could keep spirit cutting their limbs. And the
Yeah,
Cubans, and to a lesser extent, Jamaican doctors were able to be patient with them and not to and go another way rather than amputating
that's
their
right.
their limbs. Go
That's
ahead,
right.
Mr.
But you know,
Yeah,
Andrew,
yeah.
a citizen, a activist from St. Lucia, he was telling
Hmm.
me he saw people leaving in wheelchairs, going to
Yes,
Cuba in wheelchairs. And when
yes,
they came back, they were walking. I think I said on your program of a man who, a citizen of Guyana, who our hospital was going to take off both of his legs. And
hmm,
somebody said, no, 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 they got him to Cuba. That man, I saw
yes,
that man not too long ago running up and down the rugby field here,
yeah,
right? You know what they
yeah,
did? They
yes,
have a drug
yes,
that reverses the thing, so amputation is over. And you
amen,
know,
yes,
St. Vincent and the Grenadines had ordered 350,000 US worth of that drug. Prime Minister Gonzalez told us.
yes,
And the money had to go through
yes,
a
yes,
corresponding bank. And the US, that speaks about freedom and democracy and human rights, held on to
prevented
St.
it.
Vincent's money for 10 months so they couldn't get
Wow.
the drug because the drug is
Yes,
expensive. Not the
yes,
Cubans make it expensive, the thing to get it out.
yes,
So while they were holding on to that money, young people were losing their limbs.
yes.
Do you know? I think it was
And let's not talk about vision care,
yes,
vision care, eye doctors, and so
vision
on.
care,
Amazing.
vision care.
Yes.
Six. I think it was 6 days ago. Did you see that flight that
Hmm.
took white Americans? Elderly Americans went to Cuba because Cuba have this new
Hmm.
drug that came out to deal with
Yes.
Alzheimer's. Good.
Yes.
Yeah. We had Guyanese. We had a young girl who went with her grandfather to Cuba because you had to go. He was
Yes.
old, so somebody for medical treatment. And
He's asking questions as Mr. Perez is talking. Go ahead, Mr. Perez. Yes.
this girl had what you call in the Caribbean they call it cock eyes or cross eyes.
Hmm. Yeah, cross
You
eyes,
know,
right?
so she went with her grandfather, and the Cubans saw her condition. They said, "Look, you stay. We will help you with this."
They're good.
He
Great.
came back normal.
Yes.
Everybody was shocked. Wow.
Yes.
I mean, you
Yes.
were born with this thing, man. You went away and came back.
Yes.
What? I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
this
And
is
one of the
this
things
is
that we have to look at.
This is
one of the
freedom.
things we have to look at, Mr. Pearl, as you're saying, we are so materialistic that when you look at the ordinary doctor and nurse in Jamaica, for example, that they
Yeah.
just, we know that they're not paid well relative to their training, right? And they could earn
Yes.
more if they go to the United States and to these so-called first world countries. But the Cuban, when they go there, they don't rough them up and beat them down as the Jamaican doctors and nurses do. So the Jamaican patients speak so highly. I have never heard one Jamaican patient speak unkindly about a Cuban doctor or nurse. They're all,
It's
I
the
mean,
same
the
thing.
teachers, they're
It's the
always
same thing.
patient and kind. Go ahead, Mr. Perro.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing in it's the same thing in
Guyana.
Guyana. It's the same thing.
Yes.
Uh
Yes.
you see, the it it's because you have an ideology and
Mm-hmm.
you're dealing with, you recognize the dignity of the human person. That the person, this
Correct.
patient
Correct.
come before you, it's
Correct.
not whether you're dealing with a human being, whether this man is poor, a kid cutter, got a
Mm-hmm.
clean of the gutter. They treat you, they understand that. This is about the human person.
And the rough, and let's talk about the rough circumstances. Well, I don't know about Ghana, but the dilapidated conditions that they're working under in Jamaica, and the fact that they don't have lots of the resources, the medical equipment that they should be having,
Yeah.
which frustrate doctors and nurses, and
Yeah.
rightfully so. But the
Yeah.
Cubans, for some, they're so resilient that they're able to deal with those hostile, under those hostile conditions. They're still able to be patient and kind and loving and compassionate.
I find it's amazing. Andrew, the uh the Cuban doctors, you go to a Cuban doctor and
Yes.
you show them the medication you're using,
Mm-hmm.
and that doctor will say to you, uh, you say, well, I went to such and such a doctor and they give me this medication. That Cuban doctor will say, well, I'm going to take you off of this medication. They will never, professional ethics, they'll never run down that other doctor or so, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
You're right.
you read between the line. What they're actually telling you
Yes.
is whoever put you on this medication put you on the wrong medication.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm. Yes.
look, I
Yes.
know of a particular case
Because why don't you say it, Mr. Pereira? Because you've been saying it. Why don't you say it? Because of the capitalism, the whole matter of that our medical system is built on profit. So
that's
they
right.
don't care if the drug that they're giving you is going to kill you, or hurt
But
you
Fidel said it
once
long
it's
ago.
making them money. Yeah.
Fidel said long ago, he said Cuba want to become a medical power. He said he
Right.
said we don't want to be but atom bombs in the way of life. And the good books, both
Right.
the Quran and the Bible and the Quran says choose life. Choose life.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cuban
Mm-hmm.
Revolution is
And
about
these
that. Whether it
correct.
was
And these are
whether
the
it
things.
was whether it is sending
Yes.
medical brigades to help people to save lives, or sending
Yes.
fighters to Angola
Yes.
to
Yes.
defend
And
human beings. You know, Nelson Mandela, when he
dignity.
was released from prison, he visited Castro. He said, I want you. He said, tell me when you are coming to visit South Africa. I don't want
I
no, but tell me
remember.
when you're
Yeah.
coming. He said,
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
when Fidel landed in Namibia,
Yes.
Sam Nujoma, the leader, welcomed him. He said, welcome to the country you helped liberate it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Liberate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Welcome. You know,
These people were great people, and I'm not going to underestimate the
yeah,
greatness of Fidel Castro. He was one of those
Cuba
exceptional
has done a lot.
political leaders.
With all that it has
Absolutely.
suffered, it has done a lot
Absolutely.
for humanity.
Right.
You know,
Where I want us to do now is to be able to sit down and look, just like any other system, as you said, human beings are flawed. We have to look at the highs and the lows and to see how we can be able to improve on a system that still needs a lot of improvement. But
yeah.
definitely, Cuba has some very strong points that cannot be negated. Go ahead, Mr. Pereira, you were saying?
Uh,
Somebody, somebody was saying it's always great to listen to Mr. Pereira, such a wealth of information and knowledge of the history. And that is why we have him on the show. And I hope that you're
Thank you.
sharing the program and that
I'm
people can
humble.
learn from Mr. Pereira's wealth of knowledge. Go ahead, Mr.
I'm
Pereira.
humble. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Sorry, I was just, yeah. You just repeat that for me. Sorry, brother. It's just a little this.
No, I was saying now. So, okay, we're counting down. In the terms of the war on Iran, um, what immediate consequence? Because every day we're hearing about the what do you call it now? The increase of oil and gas and what's going to happen to our cost of living. What do you think is going to happen to us in the Caribbean with regard to the war?
One more week, and this is going to be terrible. You see, I, I think as I mentioned, you see, there is big divisions in the White House.
Mm-hmm. I think
Yes,
she's Marie is telling you about this one. You see the name of the
that's it.
second
Correct. Thank
dedication.
you for that. That's the
Yeah,
name of it.
yeah,
Thank you for that. Yes,
Marie.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. You see, what is coming out is that you get an impression that Trump was lied. Not impression. It's clear that a number of people misguided, lied to Trump about what
Mm-hmm.
really transpired with the talks
With the
with
Ayatollah.
Oman. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
Trump went into Iran believing that after you took out, there would be quick shock and all. You like what you
Mm-hmm.
Iraq, you decapitate, you
Yes.
kill the spiritual leader, and you take out certain leaders, and that's the end of it. But what we are,
Mm-hmm.
as a number of people pointed out, including Scott Ritter and others, is the Iranians were preparing for this for many years.
For a long time. For 20,
And
well,
what
20
they
something
have,
years.
yeah, don't believe if you decapitate this one, that's the end. The structures are
Mm-hmm.
decentralized. So
Mm-hmm.
even if you have A right down to L, if within a certain time B doesn't hear from A, B goes into action.
Mm-hmm.
B goes into action.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
the thing goes right
Yes.
down. So it's decentralized. They've been preparing for this. You can see now there is things coming out that the US is hustling, trying to get some sort of negotiation. But this is not
Mm-hmm.
good for Israel. Israel wants to continue this war, and Israel is trying to drag other countries in it by launching false flag operations. Uh, when the Iranians launch a missile and hit a target, the Iranians say, look, we struck this target. Anything the Iranians target and they hit, that they say we did this. But that hit that took place on the Saudi refinery, the Iranians said we had
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with that. That's the Mossad. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. That's the Zionists. See, the Zionists
Mm-hmm.
want to pull others into the war. Good, and though there's something was interesting, right, with all of this is the way certain people are trying to shape it, like the ignorant Christian right wing in the United States,
Yes.
the
Mm-hmm.
bogus Bible preachers like John Hagee and them. They're trying to frame it as a war against Islam, Jewish and Christian and all that, right? But those guys they're dunces. They will know that Islam reveres and has more love for Jesus than loves Jesus more than the Jews. They need to know that. That's the first thing. Uh, and that then you have the Gulf state. They're trying to frame it. Those right wing Christians are trying to frame it like it's a religious war. Then you have the Arab states, especially the Gulf states, who, without saying certain things, but you can read between the line, are trying to somehow frame it as a Sunni Shia conflict
Mm-hmm.
quietly. You see?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Right? Yeah.
Yes.
And it has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with that. So this is for their own ends. This is basically about countries fighting for their right to self-determination. Those Gulf states, the best thing they can do is to, and Iran told them that, is to let the Americans, to kick the American bases out. Because what we have seen over the past couple of days or weeks is that The US never, the reasons for the US military bases in Bahrain, in the Gulf states, was never to protect those countries
Never.
because they've moved those weapons now to defend Israel. Good.
Right. Right.
There, if there is any regime change in the region where the first regime changes come from, in Bahrain. In Bahrain, because the majority of the population in Bahrain are Shia Muslims. So every time an Iranian missile hit a target in Bahrain, the people are celebrating.
Yes, and let me ask you, the Saudi Arabia and some other of the Gulf states and whatever, they are so-called American allies. But do you think, as Muslims, they are sitting down thinking that they like to see what is happening in Iran? Don't you think that something in them is angry that this Western so-called empire wants to control the world, and we might be next if we don't agree with everything the United States wants us to do? What do you think?
I think a lot. The divide. It's a lot of people in those states do not like the ruling regimes. But
Yeah,
the
they
West
don't.
protects those regimes. There was during the
Right.
so-called Arab Spring, there was a big uprising in Bahrain. Big
Right.
uprising against because the majority of Shias and the ruling class there is happen to be Sunni Muslims. And when they had that uprising during the so-called Arab Spring, it was crushed by Saudi Arabia sent in troops. Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Britain. Helped in suppressing that.
Mm-hmm.
They helped in putting that down. So all of those places, and then Jordan, 60% of the Jordanian population are Palestinians.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
60%.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think that what they expected, they did not see. And Iran, Trump is saying now that Iran has 48 hours to open the
The Strait of Hormuz. Mm-hmm.
or else they're
Mm-hmm.
going to Hormuz or destroy
To
all
bomb
the
it.
energy facilities. Iran said, well, we will respond by destroying every energy, oil, and gas facility in the Gulf states. I don't think the Gulf states want that, because if that happens, this is going to be it's going to be so bad for the globe that it's going to take a very, very long time for recovery. I think
But
we're in the
is that?
stage we've already opened the opening stages of World War III. This is not heading
But
in the
isn't
right
this direction? But isn't this more for profit though? Because Trump is asking Congress for $200 billion more. I think he asked him for $500 billion the other day, and he wants another $200 billion. And Hegseth is suggesting that it could be more. So it seems more that they really want this war to expand, and they love it. The oil, not the oil, but the war profiteers, the war, enthusiasts. They
You know
want
what?
this war because they benefit from the war
But
financially.
you see, this is the thing about irrational minds. In what way are they going to be benefit? Because there will be nothing to benefit
Money,
from when you destroy the
money.
entire place. There will
They
be,
don't
how are you going
care.
to spend this money? Where are we going to spend this money? We're going to
On
obliterate
themselves.
humanity.
That
We're
is
going to
it.
destroy
That
humanity.
is
So
it.
where are we going to spend
That's
this money? You know,
very
do you
good.
know
And that's a very good point you're making.
Yeah, you listen to Hexet. You listen to people like Hexet. These guys don't know the world. They don't even know the capitals of certain countries. They don't. This
You're
is a
right.
guy
In fact,
who he
Tucker
is
Carlson.
racist, a drunkard. He's a drunkard. These guys, the people, America is being led by lunatics. These people
But
are, you listen to Trump.
America has always been very poor in geography.
Trump is
You must
deranged.
admit. Yeah.
Trump should
And
be in a mental asylum. That's where he belongs to. It's a deranged mind
Ted
in the White House.
Ted Cruz, right? Ted Cruz, one of those MAGA guys.
Yes,
He was asked by Tucker Carlson, what's the population of Iran? He said he doesn't know, and he proudly said it.
exactly.
How and,
Yes,
and Yeah, the guy was saying, how can you not know the population of a country that you're bombing, that you're
Yeah,
destroying?
yeah,
So what strategies are you trying? It's weird that he would even come on airtime and tell Tucker Carlson that he doesn't know the
yeah,
population of Iraq.
yeah,
Yet
yeah.
he's
That's
willing to
right.
talk to the
Yeah, and
bomb.
those are the people who want to rule the world, like Noramus.
Yes,
Andrew,
yes,
it's nothing new. Many moons ago, when Ronald Reagan, I think he was visiting, he went to Brazil, and he said, "It's nice to be in Buenos Aires." That's what he said. He thought that the
yes. I
capital
remember
of Brazil.
it was
You remember
Bush,
that?
wasn't it Bush? Yes, I remember. Yeah, they don't care about geography. They don't care. But
Yeah,
to them,
they're not bright.
it's a sign. To them, it's a sign of superiority. They
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that,
yeah.
hey, I don't have to
Yeah,
be the
you don't
world
have to be
because
bright to be an
America
American
is the
president.
world. America is the world, right? America
Yeah,
is the world. So I
yeah.
don't have to know you. You have to know me, but I don't have to know you,
I'm,
even though you're
I'm,
bombing me.
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you something. You know Kwame Nkrumah. Many people don't know this.
Hmm.
Dr.
Yeah, from
Nkrumah.
Africa. Yeah. Hmm.
Dr. Nkrumah did a Master of Theology. He had a THM. I'm not talking about the MA in theology. I'm talking about the THM, which is like the equivalent of a MPhil.
Hmm.
People, he had a Master of Theology degree.
Hmm.
Good. When you read Kwame Nkrumah's book, Consciencism, that's heavy reading because he goes into
Hmm.
Cartesian philosophy and all of that and Kantian ethics and everything. Why I'm mentioning that to you, Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of independent Ghana, when you read Kwame Nkrumah, the United States never in its history has produced one mind, any president that could match the brain and intellectual prowess of Kwame Nkrumah. I'm just
Hmm.
telling you. But we look down, we in Africa, this part of the world, we are looking to them, and they're ignoramuses, and we
Hmm.
produce some of the greatest minds.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, the
Because
US has
again,
never produced not one US
they are
president
at
had the
the
intellectual ability of to match a Kwame Nkrumah.
yes, but it's the same thing with Britain, right? How much did Britain
Yeah,
know of the colonies that it was actually ruling over? They didn't know much about the
yes.
colonies. We
No,
knew
they did
about
not.
Britain, and but Britain didn't know about us,
They did
right?
not.
So it's that seat of arrogance of you. I am the king, and you are the subjects, and you. I don't have to know you, but you have to know
Yes,
about me,
yes,
right? It's the same
yeah,
sort of. Yeah,
yeah.
and it is sad. So you think that
But
do you
Andrew,
think the war is about? Go ahead. Yeah. Yes. Go ahead.
you can recall, I was in primary school. They had us. We were reading about Florence Nightingale,
Mm-hmm.
the lady with the lamp, the Crimean War. She came around and the way she treated the wounded and everything. We were a colony and we were reading all of these great white people, the women and men. Good. But and then the nurses. They said, "Oh, she's the mother of nurses." The nurse and the nurses up to today take the Nightingale oath, um, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like how the doctors take the Hippocratic oath, right?
Mm-hmm.
The medical. But they didn't tell us anything but Mary Ann C. Cole,
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. They're not gonna
who was
because
from
that's not
Jamaican
important to
roots,
them. From Jamaica. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
black.
Mm-hmm.
Black, they didn't tell her
Mm-hmm.
anything but her, who did more
Yeah,
work and was more in nursing than Florence
she
Nightingale.
did.
But Florence Nightingale was
She
white.
did.
They didn't
Yeah,
put Mary Ann
you're
C.
right.
Cole in the primary school text for us when we were a
They're
colony.
not gonna do that.
We only knew about
Mm-hmm.
Mary Ann C. Cole when we started to do black studies and all of that and as
Correct.
young and get up. Then
Correct.
the Hippocratic oath
Correct.
of him, the Greek, they said
Yeah.
he was the father of medicine. No, it was the oath. It
Yeah.
should be the oath of Imhotep, who built the first
Yes.
hospital in the world in Kemet.
Yes. Yes.
But we didn't know
Yes.
about the
Yes.
Imhotepian oath.
Yes.
That's
Professor
why,
Hinson, one of your countrymen, Professor Hinson, who lives in the States, and he was telling us that he was given some, professor, whatever, responsibility, teaching opportunity at the University of Guyana, right there in Guyana.
Yeah.
and he asked them about, and these are university students, about Walter Rodney, and they did not know anything about Walter Rodney. Can you imagine that
Yeah.
he,
Yeah.
living in a country, and Walter Rodney is one of the greatest men of the 20th century in terms of his
Yeah.
intellect. Go ahead, Mr.
That's
Perreira.
true. That's true. I want to comment on this, and I agree with this
Yes, go
person
ahead.
100%.
Go
It
ahead.
also seems that the people of
Yes.
Sudan are now breathing sighs of relief because Iran targeting UAE has given a breathing space
Hmm.
to Sudan. That's true. Let me comment quickly on that. I was talking about that not
Yes,
too long
absolutely.
ago.
Yes, yes.
Uh, the the UAE is backing the rapid deployment forces led by Hemeti, the RDF,
Mm-hmm.
which was formerly the Janjaweed
Mm.
militia. Good. The RDF was created by Omar Bashir.
Mm-hmm.
They were a proxy that Omar Bashir used in waging a war against guerrillas by liberation forces that were hostile to Khartoum. And I'm not talking about liberation forces from South Khartoum because they're groups that are fighting the South Khartoum government. I am talking about
Mm-hmm.
like the GEM, the Justice and Equality Movement that made that years ago, not too long, couple of years back, went straight into the capital, Sudan. You remember? To almost
Mm-hmm.
seized it, were beaten back. They were supported by Gaddafi of Libya. Libya supported them
Mm-hmm.
because Omar
Yes.
Bashir, he was a rat bag anyhow. They played a part in the bringing down of Libya. But the thing is, the RDF is getting the backing of the UAE, good,
Mm-hmm.
to wage the war against the Khartoum government led by Burhani.
Mm-hmm.
So now that the UAE is taking a battering, Khartoum is glad because the RDF is not going to get drones and weapons now from the UAE. The UAE needed to defend itself against Iran. So
Mm-hmm.
The Khartoum government said that if push come to shove, they're going to send fighters to help Iran.
Okay.
Khartoum said that,
Mm.
and they're right
Mm.
because the RDF has created a lot of chaos, and the RDF, the weaponry that the RDF is getting is from the UAE. Now the UAE cannot do what they're doing in Sudan without the blessings of the US.
Mm. Mm. It's interesting that you talk about that, because the political and you probably could think if this is a misinformation, brought a story this week that said that the Russians want to meet with Trump because they would be willing to stop sharing intelligence with Iran if the United States decide to stop sharing Russian intelligence with Ukrainians. What do you think about that? Do you think these people, like these global powers, they just play us, and when they get what they want, they just turn their backs and betray us? Because if
I am not
if the Russians are providing
I don't
intelligence
think
to
I don't even think I don't know if the Ukraine matters to Trump anymore because
Russia, right, right.
to Trump in the sense that I think
Oh,
Zelensky said,
okay,
"Oh, they would help with thing and all that." The United States and Trump replied by saying, "The last person body we want help from is Zelensky." Trump said that,
okay, okay, okay,
right? That's what he said a
okay.
couple of days ago. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
Zelensky begging Trump, and Trump say, "We don't really want your help." Uh, Russia, remember, during this war, why Zelensky wants to be involved is because Iran sent a lot of Iran is the master of drone technology. They send a lot of drones to Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Iran sent a lot
Mm-hmm.
of drones to Russia, and
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some way there is a try. There's an agreement between the three countries, between Russia, China, and Iran, that
Mm-hmm.
we're still to see. We still have to watch and see what's playing out. But I don't think, especially China is going to see Iran collapse. It's not because I share the view. This is my position. I think that the whole thing. I think this whole war against Iran, Israel might has its own reasons, but the U.S. has its own objective too, and the U.S. wants to get
It's more for US.
China.
It's more for U.S. war than an Israel war. They wanted to make it seem like it's an Israeli war, and I'm not saying that Israel it doesn't. They don't like Iran.
No,
That's for sure.
no, I'm
But
saying Israel has its dream of a great Israel, the Great Israel project. But
mhm,
what I'm saying
mhm.
is
Mhm.
The Americans, the
Want to
Americans'
control the
idea is
world.
that is to get yes, and America is going to somewhere along the line, America and China are going to clash.
Yeah.
It's going to
That is,
come.
and notice that Trump is saying that he's not going to meet with Z until this war is
Yeah.
finalized with
It's
Iran.
going to
That's
clash.
what he says.
It's going to
Yes, yes,
good thing. And
yes.
this if this thing go like 2 more weeks, it's going to get escalate to a dangerous point because I see North Korea has come out in support of
Of
Iran,
Iran. Hmm.
and North Korea just tested some of the latest updates. North Korea, I don't think the you know I was listening to an Indian military analyst, and he's saying
Hmm.
that the U.S., the blunder that the U.S. made, they did not calculate for this. They're in this mess.
Hmm.
Let's see how they're going to come out. But knowing Trump is unpredictable, and you don't know what the Israelis are up to. But whether they will use tactical nuclear, whatever they'll do, let's hope they don't go down that line. But I believe at the end of the day, it's the majority of people on this planet. People can stop it. The U.S. I see the big demonstrations being planned across the United States. You got to force that man out to the White House. You see the demonstrations in Greece, in
Yeah,
Austria,
yeah, but
all over.
correct. But the system is going to be hard. You see, the system is what has birthed Trump, and Trump is just the symptom of the system. So the
Yeah,
system remains intact, and then the Democrat comes and they do the same thing. But
that's right.
what is interesting, Mr. Pereira, is that it seems to me, based on what Trump is saying, that peace is only going to be achieved when the empire gets what it wants. So it
Mm.
doesn't want to come out of a war. It wants to stay in wars as long as wars can be until it gets what it wants. And what it wants is full spectrum dominance to control the entire globe. And if it has
Not
to
going to
do it, if
happen.
it has to expect war forever, it will.
It's not going to happen, and it's not going to happen. The empire is going to collapse, and
Hmm.
right now, the things are not nice in the United States at all. Let me give you an example. There was a time when you go into certain places and you see the long lines at the remittance offices.
Hmm.
People
Hmm.
going to Western Union to collect money. You don't see that now.
Hmm.
You don't see
Hmm.
that. In
Hmm.
fact, in fact,
Hmm.
I was told by people here that there are many Guyanese
Hmm.
who are sending money for relatives in the United States.
Abroad in the states.
Yeah, that's
But
what's
you see,
happening now.
again, I tell people, I don't know how much you agree with me, that there is a difference between the empire and the republic. The United States has been able for a long time to keep up a front of being a republic or a democracy and an empire, which you can't have both, because you're either going to
That's
have one
right.
or the other.
That's
But
right.
they have been
That's
able
right.
to maintain a front. In my opinion, humble opinion, Mr. Perrer, I believe that that state, what we call the facade of the democracy or a republican state, is what
Mhm.
is collapsing. The
Yeah.
empire is not.
Mm.
And that's where we have to make the difference. The empire is strengthening to an extent, while the facade of the democratic state is collapsing. And that is why you're seeing the poverty, the
Well, once a
suffering,
state,
the rights, the erosion of rights, and everything in the United States. Go
you
ahead,
can
Mr.
have it
Perry.
the other way. You can have it if the state collapses, the empire will collapse. The state is the north center.
Well,
No,
it's
if
two states
you
in
know the
one. It's a
Roman
dual
the
state.
Roman Empire. Remember, at the end of the day, the center of the Roman Empire was in Rome itself.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, People like Attila the Hun understood that. Good. And this is right. When
Mm-hmm.
empires always overreach themselves and bring about their collapse, because
The collapse.
empires reach that point where the emperor loses all sense, becomes divorced from reality. We saw it with Caligula, we saw
Mm-hmm.
it with all of them. Good. And then they
Yes.
collapse. I think it was
Mm-hmm.
it was Cicero said an empire does not collapse because of those who are at the door, those at the door attacking it. coming through the door, or
Yes.
when the people itself
Yes.
no longer have confidence in it to collapse. But there were different
Hmm.
things that, on the eve, up to the eve of the collapse of the Roman Empire, few saw it coming. That was coming,
Yes. Many.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Attila the
Yeah.
Hun reached. Attila the Hun reached right into the gate, right into Rome, and the Pope came out
Hmm.
and argued and him to turn back, because Attila said, "Wherever my horse trampled the grass don't go back."
Hmm.
So today, this empire, if the state collapses, the empire will collapse. But if the empire is taking a hit, is being hit from different points, and it collapses, then the state will be in trouble, and the state will implode. Let me tell you why. Che Guevara, when he addressed the meeting, the tricontinental gathering, the tricontinental meeting many years ago,
Hmm.
he said we have to create two, three, many Vietnams for the empire. Two, three, many Vietnams. And I think we're witnessing that, because you see the resistance in Gaza. People thought
Hmm.
that Hezbollah was finished. You had to be a fool. We know how Hezbollah operates. Hezbollah is built back. War. They don't allow the thing about the fighters such as Hezbollah and the Houthis. They don't allow
Hmm.
the enemy to pick the time and where to fight. They determine it.
Hmm.
You have to
Hmm.
know when to fight. You don't let the enemy decide when you must fight and that. And we've seen that. And
Correct.
the
Correct.
Houthis are not ready as yet. The Houthis are ready. And when they begin on the Red Sea, let's see what's going to happen. That's another front. Not to mention the popular mobilization forces in Iraq that are fighting. There's a pro-Iranian backed militias that are fighting for Iran. Good. So this
Hmm.
is going to escalate. Trump, they did not calculate for all of this. And it's going to
Hmm.
bring about, what is going to happen is Trump is between a rock and a hard place, because the
Hmm.
Gulf states want this war to finish. They don't, you think
Hmm.
Dubai, with all their bling bling and all those
They're
towers and all,
collapsing.
you think
They're
they want to
collapsing.
try to rebuild when, with all that, they're collapsing. You saw the
Hmm.
airports with the people trying to get out. Good.
Hmm.
They
They
want,
are collapsing.
so they're telling
Yeah.
Trump, you better find a way out to this. And then Israel is trying to
Hmm.
make sure that Trump doesn't come out it. So he's
Hmm.
stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Well, he's asking for more money. He's asking Congress for more money.
Well, let's see. Let's see where that is going to go, because Iran is not going. Iran said there will be no talks, no negotiation. And Iran is not going to surrender. They're not going to surrender. You can obliterate them. You know why, brother? If you
Hmm.
study, I mentioned this on a number of programs. I can't recall if I did in Europe. There
Yeah.
is a tradition in Shia Islam where martyrdom, where
Yes.
sacrifice and struggle is something noble. It's sacred. And
Yes.
martyrdom is welcome, because one of the
Let me get
revered
some.
characters in the Shia tradition, Imam Hussein, who was the grandson of the noble prophet of Islam, peace be upon him.
Yeah. Talk with the getting some lights here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. I was getting some lights on
The
here.
grandson of the holy prophet, Hussein.
Yeah.
He led an army
Yeah.
of about not more than 700 persons at the Battle of Karbala
Yes. Yeah.
against a huge army. And his entire family and companions and those with him were wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
They, they, they went into battle. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
they knew that whether they were going to survive or not, but they fought. But sacrifice. But it's the example of sacrifice. To
Yes.
sacrifice as something that's noble. And the Shia tradition is different to the Sunni tradition. The Shias welcome martyrdom. They welcome martyrdom. So to die for this cause, you see they're dropping bombs. and people are marching in the streets. People are marching in the
Mm-hmm.
streets and everything and all of that. They're not afraid.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yeah.
let's see where this. They're not going to. They are not one way or the other. Let's see what Trump is going to do. But Iran is in.
Mm-hmm.
Iran, and I was listening to Julius Malema from South Africa. He just addressed a rally. He's saying that we stand with all Iranians, we stand with Iran, and Iran must make sure that eventually, and Iran is demanding it, that there will be
Mm-hmm.
reparations that you will have to pay. You're not going to get away with this. You twice
Yes.
you've deceived while you're having negotiations. You were deceiving people, and Iran is not going to end this war on the terms that the U.S. and the Nazi state of Israel wants. Iran is going to decide how this will end. And if Trump
Mm-hmm.
believes that he can sink, it's gonna be a Pyrrhic victory. So Iran is not going to give up. So if you think that you could sink Iran, good. If you believe that by blowing up all the energy and everything, when Iran finish with the Gulf states, there will be nothing. There will be nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see
Yes.
where it's
What
going to
about
get
the
off when gas feels born.
what about the other countries that are on the side? Well, are supporting the United States in this war against Iran. How will
Not
Iran be
really.
able
Look,
to
the
cover?
Saudis play games. The Saudis say one thing and behind the back they're doing something else. I don't know who's
Mm-hmm.
really supporting the US other than a few vassal states. Even the Europeans are
Mm-hmm.
not on board. The German foreign minister said, why should we send ships to uh, clear the Strait of Hormuz, right? When the great
Mm-hmm.
US Navy
Mm-hmm.
can't do it. We didn't start this war. The
Mm-hmm.
German foreign minister said that. He said, we didn't start it. It's the US and Israel started this war. Started it.
Yes, and at the end of the day, they support it. They always say things, and then afterwards, they just,
This is
oh,
how they
it's
operate.
US.
This is how they operate. We
Mm-hmm.
take them with a pinch of
Mm-hmm.
salt. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what
Yeah.
I take them as.
Yeah.
What a wonderful conversation, Mr. Pereira. I think that we could go all night in terms of
Yeah.
the hot button topics, but we have to end here, unfortunately.
Yes.
And if you have any two more questions, people, but Mr. Pereira can wrap up and tell us what are your closing thoughts. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Hello?
The only thing I'd like to say,
Can you share some closing thoughts with us? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yes, my I'd like to close by saying that throughout history, they've always been, ever since we have been on this planet called Earth, the battle between primarily two forces: the battle
Mm-hmm.
between truth and falsehood. And
Yes.
in that camp of truth, we're going to find all races and ethnicities, people of all religious persuasion, and people of
Mm-hmm.
different ideological conviction. In the camp of
Correct.
Batil falsehood, in the camp of falsehood, we'll find the same people. We'll find Muslims, so-called Christians, so-called
Mm-hmm.
Jews, so-called Rastafari in the
Mm-hmm.
camp of falsehood.
Yes.
But at the end of
Mm-hmm.
the day, the battle is between truth and falsehood. And I
And
believe in
falsehood.
the dignity of the human person. I,
Yes.
as an African, I am proud. I'm a Pan Africanist. I'm proud of who I am. And I believe in the total liberation of Africa and of oppressed Africans
Mm-hmm.
all over. And
Yes.
Africans know what it is to suffer. And that is why
Yes.
South Africa came out right away
Victorious. Yes.
in
Mm-hmm.
standing up for Palestine. Because when the Western world was backing South Africa, racist South Africa, as Nelson Mandela said, he said, in our darkest moments, Colonel Gaddafi, Fidel Castro, and Yasser Arafat stood with us. Those were the words of Nelson
Mm-hmm.
Mandela.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yes. And
I
Mr. Pereira, go ahead. Go
believe
ahead.
in that. I believe that all those who believe, if you believe, I believe as the Islam teaches, Jesus started. Marcus Garvey said, this is one battle, but many fronts, and we have to hold on our end. And there are many ways of fighting this battle, including what my
Mm-hmm.
brother Andrew is doing here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Mr. Pereira. And Mr. Pereira, whatever topic that you think is pertinent, you're on my WhatsApp, so you can tell me, and you can tell me when you're able to do it. I don't always have to tell you what topic. You
Yes,
can
sure.
tell me topics that you think are of importance,
Yeah.
for the audience to know and to learn about, and then we'll just make it happen. Right. So
Okay.
thank you again, Mr. Pereira, for joining,
Welcome,
and
my
I
brother.
really respect your knowledge. Go ahead, Mr. Pereira.
No, welcome. Thank you. Anytime. Yes.
Yes, and I respect your knowledge, and this is the type of discussions we want to have. He and I might not agree on
I
everything,
respect
but
yours too.
we
That's why we
agree
can
on.
have this conversation.
Correct. Correct. We can have an honest
Yeah.
conversation. We can say where we
That's right.
are, where we how we see things. We might not
That's
be
right.
correct. We might not be.
Yeah.
We don't know everything, as he's saying.
Yeah.
So let's have these very intelligent conversations, and that these are the type of dialogue conversations that we need. So thank you
Yes.
so much, ladies and gentlemen, and I will see you on another live program. All the best. Happy Sunday, and see you another time. Bye
All the best, my
bye.
brother. Yeah.
Okay, Mr.
Yeah.
Pereira, have a great day. Have a great evening.
Same to you.
Bye bye.
Yeah.